A burned-out ER nurse answers a phone call meant for a dead man, and within 12 hours, her entire world detonates. The voice on the line belongs to Damien Vescari, a name whispered in fear by criminals across 3 states. By morning, blood-red roses wait at her hospital. By nightfall, armed killers raid her apartment hunting for something she doesn't have. Now she's trapped inside a mafia king's Gothic fortress, discovering her parents' deaths 15 years ago weren't accidents, they were assassinations. And the same monster who killed them is coming for her next. Want to see how far this story travels? Drop a like, comment your city below, and stay until the end. Because this nurse is about to learn that some wrong numbers rewrite your entire destiny. By Masiki, the rain came down like punishment that Thursday night, hammering the windows of Mercy Memorial's emergency wing hard enough to rattle the aluminum frames. Ellie Mercer stood at the nurse's station with her 3rd cup of burned coffee going cold in her hand, staring at a computer screen that kept glitching out. 12 hours into her shift, 16 patients backlogged in triage, 2 residents screaming at each other in the supply closet over a contaminated IV line. She was 31 years old and felt 60. Her phone buzzed on the counter. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, and spam calls had been relentless lately, robot voices trying to sell her car insurance for a vehicle she didn't own. But something about the timing felt off. Wrong. It was 2:47 in the morning. Nobody legitimate called at 2:47 unless someone was dying. She swiped to answer. Hello? Silence on the other end. Not dead air, the kind of silence that breathes. Someone was there, listening, deciding. Then a voice came through, male, low, controlled in a way that made her spine straighten instinctively. Where is it? Ellie frowned. I'm sorry, who is this? Don't play games with me. The voice didn't rise, didn't need to. There was something underneath it, something cold and final, like a door closing on a vault. Leon said you'd have it ready by midnight. It's almost 3. My patience has limits. I think you have the wrong number. Do I? A pause. She heard something in the background. Footsteps. The faint hum of an expensive engine. This is 5550147, isn't it? It's 5550174. Another pause. Longer this time. Say that again. 5550174. Ellie's heart kicked up a notch without her permission. You transposed 2 numbers. I don't know anyone named Leon. I'm an ER nurse. You've got the wrong person. She expected him to apologize. Hang up, curse under his breath, and redial. Instead, he said, What's your name? Every instinct she'd honed working night shifts in downtown emergency rooms started screaming. I'm hanging up now. Ellie Mercer. Her blood went cold. 2806 Bleecker Street, apartment 4C. You drive a 2012 Honda Civic with a dented rear bumper. Your parents died in a house fire when you were 16. You have no siblings, no husband, no boyfriend for the last 14 months. You work 60-hour weeks because you're drowning in student loans and you can't sleep anyway, so you might as well get paid for it. Goti. Ellie's hand tightened around the phone until her knuckles went white. Her throat closed. She tried to speak, and nothing came out. You're not in the system, the voice continued. Not connected to my world in any visible way, which means either you're very, very good at hiding what you are, or Leon Petrov gave you a phone number 1 digit off from his burner before someone put 3 bullets in his skull. I don't... Her voice cracked. I don't know what you're talking about. No, he said quietly. I don't think you do. A long silence stretched between them. Somewhere down the hall, an ambulance siren wailed closer. Ellie's pulse hammered against her ribs. My name is Damien Vescari, the man said. And you need to listen very carefully, Ellie. Leon Petrov died 4 hours ago in a warehouse on the South Docks, with your phone number written on his hand. The people who killed him think you have something that belongs to them, something worth dying for. They're going to come for you, probably within the next 12 hours. This is insane. If you're smart, you'll disappear tonight. Change your name, leave the state, don't go home, don't contact anyone you know. If you're very lucky, they'll assume Leon gave them bad information and move on. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm trying to decide whether you're a threat or a victim. His voice dropped even lower. And because if you really are just a nurse who answered the wrong call, then what's about to happen to you isn't something I want on my conscience. The line went dead. Ellie stood frozen at the nurse's station, phone still pressed to her ear, rain drumming against the windows like 1,000 skeletal fingers. Around her, the ER churned on. Doctors shouting orders, monitors beeping, a woman sobbing in curtain 3. Normal chaos. The kind she'd learned to navigate on autopilot. But everything felt different now. Her hands were shaking. She told herself it was a prank. Some sick bastard with too much time and a decent internet connection. People found personal information online all the time. It didn't mean anything. It didn't mean... Her phone buzzed again. A text message. Unknown number. Same one. The roses are already on their way. If you're still breathing tomorrow morning, you'll know where to find me. Ellie's shift ended at 6. She didn't disappear. Didn't run. Instead, she finished her charting, handed off to the day nurse, and walked out through the ambulance bay into a gray morning that smelled like rain and exhaust fumes. Her Civic sat in the far corner of the parking garage, where she always left it, dented bumper and all. She climbed inside, locked the doors, and sat there with her hands on the steering wheel, trying to slow her breathing. It was a prank. Had to be. She drove home through empty streets, the city still half asleep. Bleecker Street looked the same as always, while old brownstones with cracked stoops, a bodega on the corner, laundry hanging from fire escapes. She parked in her usual spot, climbed the 4 flights to her apartment, unlocked the door. Everything was exactly as she'd left it. She locked herself inside, threw the deadbolt, hooked the chain. Then she stood in her narrow kitchen and made coffee she didn't drink while sunlight crept through the blinds. By 8 o'clock, she'd almost convinced herself the whole thing had been some kind of fever dream. Then her phone rang. Hospital switchboard. Ellie, it's Karen from reception. Someone left a delivery for you at the front desk. Should I send it up to the floor? What kind of delivery? Flowers. Really expensive ones. Karen's voice carried a thread of curiosity she was trying to hide. There's a card. Ellie's stomach dropped. I'll come down. You don't have to. I'll come down. She threw on yesterday's scrubs and drove back to the hospital faster than she should have. Hands tight on the wheel, pulse hammering in her ears. The morning traffic blurred past. She parked in the loading zone and walked through the main entrance on legs that didn't feel entirely solid. Karen stood behind the reception desk with a massive bouquet of roses. Blood red. At least 3 dozen stems arranged in a crystal vase that probably cost more than Ellie's rent. Jesus, Karen breathed. Who's your secret admirer? Ellie took the card with numb fingers. The handwriting was elegant, old-fashioned, the kind of script you'd see on wedding invitations or legal documents from a century ago. Wrong numbers sometimes lead to the right destinies. No signature. Ellie stared at the words until they stopped making sense. Around her, the hospital lobby hummed with morning activity. Visitors checking in, doctors grabbing coffee, someone's grandmother being wheeled toward cardiology. Normal. Safe. The roses smelled like funerals. Ellie? Karen's voice seemed to come from very far away. You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. I'm fine. The lie tasted like copper. Just tired. She left the roses at reception, told Karen to throw them out or give them away. Then she drove home again, locked herself inside her apartment again, and spent the rest of the day sitting on her couch with her phone in her hand, waiting for something terrible to happen. Nothing did. By sunset, she'd started to relax. Started to think maybe Damien Vescari, if that was even his real name, was just trying to scare her. Some kind of psychological game. Rich psychopath with too much money and a twisted sense of humor. She took a shower, made dinner, watched television without seeing it. At 11 o'clock, she finally convinced herself to sleep. She was 3 steps from her bedroom when someone knocked on her door. Not a normal knock. Not the neighbor asking to borrow milk or the delivery guy with the wrong address. This was deliberate, measured. 3 precise impacts that echoed through her apartment like gunshots. Ellie froze in the hallway. Another 3 knocks, same rhythm. Her mouth went dry. She moved to the door on silent feet, pressed her eye to the peephole. A man stood in the corridor, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a black suit that fit him like a second skin. His face was turned slightly away, but she could see the sharp line of his jaw, the dark hair styled back from his forehead. He knocked again. "Miss Mercer." His voice carried through the door, smooth, controlled, devastatingly calm. "I know you're there. I can hear you breathing." Ellie's hand went to the deadbolt before her brain caught up. She stopped herself. "Who are you?" "You know who I am. Damien Vescari." "Yes." "How did you find me?" "I found you 12 hours ago, Ellie. I've known where you live since before I called you. The question isn't how I found you." He paused. "It's why I'm standing outside your door at 11 at night, instead of letting the people hunting for Leon's phone contact do what they came here to do." Her pulse spiked. "What are you talking about?" "Check your peephole again, but don't look at me. Look down the hall, to your left." Ellie pressed her eye back to the glass, shifted her gaze. Two men stood near the stairwell exit. They weren't trying to hide. Both wore dark clothing. One had his hand inside his jacket. The other was staring directly at her door with the kind of stillness that made her skin crawl. "They've been here for 20 minutes, Damien said quietly, "waiting to see if I'd leave. I won't, which means they have a choice to make. And so do you." "This is insane," Ellie's voice came out shaky. You're threatening me. You're trying to scare me into—" "If I wanted to threaten you, I'd be on the other side of that door with them." His tone didn't change, still calm, still controlled. "I'm here because Leon Petrov died with your phone number on his body, and the people who killed him think you're connected to something you're not. I'm here because the wrong number you answered last night just painted a target on your back the size of this entire city." "Then call the police." "The police?" For the first time, something shifted in his voice. Not anger, something colder. "3 of the men hunting you are cops. 2 more are federal agents on a private payroll. Do you understand what I'm telling you, Ellie? The people who want you dead aren't street criminals. They're professionals, connected. And if you call 911 right now, there's a decent chance the dispatcher will forward your location to the same people standing in your hallway." Ellie's legs went weak. She pressed her back against the door, hands shaking. "So here's what happens next," Damien continued. "You open this door, you come with me, and you stay alive long enough to figure out why a dead man decided to make you collateral damage in a war you don't even know exists. And if I don't?" Silence. Then I leave, and you find out exactly how creative people get when they want information someone doesn't have." Ellie closed her eyes. Her apartment felt impossibly small suddenly. 4 walls and a locked door that wouldn't stop anyone determined to get inside. She thought about the roses, the phone call, the way Damien Vescari had recited her entire life like he was reading from a file. She thought about her parents, the fire that killed them when she was 16, the investigators who ruled it an accident, the way her entire world had collapsed in a single night, leaving her alone with nothing but student loans and a nursing degree she'd fought like hell to earn. Your parents died in a house fire. How had he known that? "Ellie," Damien's voice cut through her spiraling thoughts. "I need an answer." Her hand moved to the deadbolt. She told herself it was survival instinct, self-preservation, the same logic that made you jump out of the way of a speeding car. But when she slid the deadbolt open and turned the handle, some part of her knew the truth. She wasn't choosing safety, she was choosing answers. The door swung open. Damien Vescari stood in the corridor like something out of a different century, all sharp lines and controlled power wrapped in a suit that probably cost more than her car. He was younger than she'd expected, mid-30s maybe. Dark hair swept back from a face that would have been beautiful if it wasn't so cold. His eyes were gray, not soft gray, the kind of gray you saw in storm clouds right before lightning split the sky. He looked at her for 3 seconds without speaking. Then he said, "You're braver than I thought. I'm terrified." "Good. That'll keep you alive." He glanced past her into the apartment. "Take nothing. No bags, no laptop. Leave your phone on the kitchen counter." "What? Why?" "Because they're tracking it." He pulled something from his pocket, a slim black phone she didn't recognize. "You'll use this. Encrypted, untraceable. Everything you own right now is compromised." Ellie's hands wouldn't stop shaking. She set her phone on the counter like he'd told her, feeling like she was severing the last connection to her real life. The apartment suddenly looked pathetic. Secondhand furniture, dishes in the sink, a stack of medical textbooks she'd been meaning to sell. Damien stepped inside, moved past her to the window, glanced out through the blinds without touching them. "They're repositioning," he said. "We have 90 seconds, maybe less." "How do you—" "Because I know how they think." He turned to face her. "Last chance, Ellie. You can stay here and take your chances with them, or you can trust me long enough to get somewhere they can't reach you." "I don't even know you." "No, but you're going to." He moved toward the door, stopped, looked back at her. "You asked me why I'm doing this," he said quietly. "The truth? I don't know yet. Maybe because Leon Petrov shouldn't have dragged a civilian into this. Maybe because the people hunting you are the same ones who killed my father 6 years ago. Or maybe—" his jaw tightened. "Maybe because I'm tired of watching innocent people burn for crimes they didn't commit." He walked out into the corridor. Ellie stood frozen in her apartment doorway, pulse hammering, every rational thought screaming at her to lock the door and call someone. Anyone! But who? Who would believe her? She looked down the hall. The two men near the stairwell were gone, just empty corridor, fluorescent lights, peeling wallpaper. Damien was already at the elevator, hand holding the door open. Ellie. She moved before she could think, stepped out of her apartment, let the door close behind her, heard the lock click like a prison cell. The elevator descended in silence. Damien stood with his back to the corner, eyes on the doors, one hand resting inside his jacket. Ellie could see the outline of something beneath the fabric. A gun. Had to be. Her stomach turned. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Somewhere safe." "That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting right now." The elevator doors opened onto the parking garage. Damien moved first, scanning the space with the kind of precision that made Ellie's skin crawl. He led her past rows of sleeping cars toward a black sedan idling near the exit ramp. The windows were tinted so dark she couldn't see inside. "Get in," Damien said. Ellie hesitated. This was it. The point of no return. Once she got into that car, everything changed. Her life, her future, everything. The sedan's rear door opened. Damien stood waiting, one hand extended like a gentleman helping a woman into a carriage. Ellie looked at his face, all sharp edges and cold control, and saw something flicker behind his eyes. Not warmth, not kindness, recognition. Like he knew exactly what she was feeling because he'd felt it himself once, a long time ago. She got in. The door closed with a soft click that sounded like a coffin lid. Damien slid into the seat beside her. The driver, an older man with military posture and a scar bisecting his left eyebrow, pulled away from the garage without a word. They accelerated up the ramp and into the night, city lights blurring past the windows. Ellie pressed her back against the leather seat, hands clenched in her lap. "You need to tell me what's happening." "You answered a phone call meant for a dead man," Damien said. "That's what's happening." "Leon Petrov." "Yes." "Who was he?" "A courier, low level. He moved packages for people who needed things transported quietly." Damien's voice carried no emotion, just facts. Clinical. 3 nights ago, he stole something from the wrong people. Yesterday, they found him in a warehouse on the South Docks and tortured him for 6 hours trying to get it back. He died before he talked. Ellie's stomach turned. "And my phone number?" "Was written on his left palm in permanent marker, along with a date. Tomorrow's date." "I don't understand." "Neither do I. Not yet." Damien glanced at her. "But the people hunting for what Leon stole don't care about understanding. They just want it back. And they think you're the next link in the chain." "I don't have anything—" "I know." "Then why—" "Because they don't." He turned to face her fully. "And until they figure that out, you're in danger. Serious danger. The kind that doesn't end with a warning." The car turned onto a highway ramp. Buildings fell away, replaced by darkness and the distant glow of suburbia. Ellie watched the city shrink in the side mirror, feeling like she was watching her entire life disappear. "Where are you taking me?" she asked again. "My home." "And where's that?" "Somewhere no one will find you unless I want them to." Ellie's pulse spiked. "That's not reassuring." "It's not meant to be." Damien's voice stayed flat. I'm not rescuing you, Ellie. I'm containing you. Until I figure out what Leon Petrov wanted with your phone number and why he thought meeting you tomorrow was worth dying for. I told you, I don't know. I believe you. He looked at her with those storm cloud eyes. But belief isn't the same as certainty. And in my world, uncertainty gets people killed. The car drove on through the night. 20 minutes, 30. The highway gave way to winding roads that cut through dense forest. No streetlights out here, just headlights carving tunnels through the darkness. Finally, they turned onto a private road. Wrought iron gates swung open automatically. The car climbed a long driveway lined with old trees, their branches forming a canopy overhead. Then the house appeared. Ellie's breath caught. It wasn't a house. It was an estate. A Gothic mansion that looked like it had been transplanted from 19th century Europe. All stone and arched windows and towers that pierced the night sky. Lights glowed from a few windows, but most of the structure sat in darkness, brooding and massive and vaguely menacing. Jesus, Ellie whispered. Welcome to the Vescari estate, Damien said quietly. You're under my protection now. The car stopped at the front entrance. The driver got out and opened Damien's door. Damien stepped onto the gravel drive and turned back to look at her. Come on, he said. We have a lot to discuss. Ellie climbed out on shaking legs. The night air felt colder here, sharper, the kind of cold that sank into your bones. Damien led her up stone steps to massive wooden doors. They swung open before he touched them. A woman in her 50s stood in the entrance, gray hair pulled back, wearing an elegant black dress that screamed old money. Mr. Vescari, she said with a slight nod. Margot. Damien gestured to Ellie. This is Miss Mercer. She'll be staying with us for the foreseeable future. Make sure the East Wing is prepared. Of course. Margot's eyes flicked to Ellie with something that might have been sympathy. Welcome, Miss Mercer. Ellie followed Damien inside, and the doors closed behind her with a sound like thunder. The interior was exactly what she'd expected, all dark wood and antique furniture and paintings that probably cost more than she'd earn in her entire lifetime. But there was something else, too. Something harder to define. The house felt lived in, used, like a weapon kept sharp through constant practice. Damien led her through corridors that twisted and turned until she'd lost all sense of direction. Finally, he stopped in front of a heavy wooden door and pushed it open. Your room, he said. Bathroom's through there. Clothes in the wardrobe. They should fit. Ellie stepped inside. The room was massive, bigger than her entire apartment. A 4-poster bed dominated one wall. A fireplace sat cold and dark on another. Tall windows looked out over grounds she couldn't see in the darkness. Lock your door if it makes you feel safer, Damien said from the doorway. But understand that if I wanted to hurt you, locks wouldn't stop me. Is that supposed to be comforting? No. He turned to leave, stopped. Get some rest. Tomorrow we start figuring out what Leon Petrov wanted from you, and why. Damien. He looked back. Thank you, Ellie said quietly. For whatever this is. Something flickered across his face, too fast to read. Don't thank me yet, he said. You don't know what you've gotten yourself into. He closed the door. Ellie stood alone in the massive room, listening to his footsteps fade down the corridor. Then she moved to the door and threw the lock, knowing it was useless, knowing it wouldn't matter, but needing the illusion of control. She sat on the edge of the bed and realized her hands had finally stopped shaking. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows. And somewhere in the darkness beyond the estate walls, people were hunting for something they thought she had, something worth killing for. Ellie closed her eyes and wondered what the hell her parents had done 15 years ago to drag her into a war she never knew existed. Because Damien Vescari was right about one thing. Wrong numbers sometimes lead to destinies. She just didn't know yet whether hers would end in salvation or a shallow grave. Ellie woke to sunlight cutting through unfamiliar windows and the immediate, visceral understanding that nothing would ever be the same again. She lay perfectly still in the massive 4-poster bed, staring at an ornate ceiling she didn't recognize, her heart already racing before her brain fully caught up. The events of the previous night crashed back in fragments. The phone call, the roses, Damien Vescari standing in her apartment hallway like death in an expensive suit, the drive through darkness to this Gothic fortress, that looked like it had been airlifted from another century. The room smelled like old wood and lavender, too clean, too perfect, like a museum or a funeral home. She sat up slowly, muscles stiff from tension she'd carried all night. Her scrubs from yesterday lay crumpled on the floor where she'd dropped them. She was wearing a t-shirt she didn't remember putting on, say, soft cotton, oversized, probably pulled from the wardrobe Damien had mentioned. The wardrobe. Ellie crossed the room on bare feet and opened the heavy wooden doors. Inside hung an entire collection of women's clothing, jeans, sweaters, dresses, all in her size, tags still attached to some of them. Shoes lined the bottom shelf. Flats, boots, sneakers. Also her size. Her stomach turned. He'd known she was coming here, prepared for it, which meant last night hadn't been a rescue at all. It had been a retrieval. She pulled on jeans and a sweater, movements mechanical, brain still processing. The clothes fit perfectly. Of course they did. Damien Vescari didn't seem like the type to make mistakes about details. She tried the door. Unlocked. The lock she'd thrown last night was just for show then, psychological comfort. She stepped into the corridor and immediately got lost. The hallways twisted like a labyrinth. Dark wood paneling, oil paintings of stern-faced men who all looked vaguely related, windows that overlooked ground so vast she couldn't see where they ended. She followed the sound of voices. The corridor opened into a massive dining room. Morning light poured through floor-to-ceiling windows. A table long enough to seat 20 ran down the center of the room, but only one end was set. White china, silver coffee service, covered dishes that probably contained food she couldn't imagine eating right now. Damien sat at the head of the table with a newspaper folded beside his plate. He'd traded last night's suit for dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. He looked up when she entered, and those storm cloud eyes tracked her movement across the room with the same precision she'd seen in predators at the zoo. "Good morning," he said. "Sit." Not an invitation. A command. Ellie's jaw tightened. "I'm not a dog." "No, but you are in my house, eating my food, under my protection. So you'll sit at my table and you'll listen to what I have to say. Then you can decide whether you want to be difficult." She sat, mostly because her legs felt unsteady, and the chair was right there. Damien gestured to the covered dishes. "Help yourself. Margot made enough to feed an army." "I'm not hungry." "You're terrified and exhausted and running on adrenaline from last night. Eat anyway. You're going to need your strength." Ellie stared at him across the table. "For what?" "For the conversation we're about to have." He poured coffee into a cup and slid it toward her. "And for what comes after." She took the coffee, wrapped both hands around the cup just to have something to hold. "Who are you?" "I told you, Damien Vescari. That's a name, not an answer." A faint smile touched his mouth, gone almost before it registered. "You want the sanitized version or the truth?" "The truth." "The truth is I run an organization your local news would call organized crime. I oversee operations in 6 states. I have politicians on my payroll, judges who owe me favors, and enough legitimate business fronts to make the IRS weep. I'm rich enough that I could disappear tomorrow and live comfortably for 10 lifetimes. And I'm dangerous enough that most people with functioning survival instincts don't ask me direct questions." Ellie's hands tightened on the coffee cup. "You're a gangster." That word went out of fashion in the 50s, but essentially, yes. "And you expect me to just, what, trust you?" "No." Damien leaned back in his chair, studying her with those unreadable eyes. "I expect you to be smart enough to recognize that right now, I'm the only thing standing between you and the people who tortured Leon Petrov for 6 hours before putting a bullet in his brain. You keep saying that, but I still don't know why they think I have something I don't. Neither do I. Which is why we're going to figure it out together." He pulled a manila folder from beside his plate and slid it across the table. "Open it." Ellie hesitated, then opened the folder. Photographs spilled out, crime scene photos. A warehouse. Concrete floor stained dark. And in the center, a body. Or what was left of one. The man's face was swollen beyond recognition. Hands twisted at wrong angles. Blood everywhere. Ellie shoved the folder away, bile rising in her throat. "Jesus Christ." "That's Leon Petrov," Damien said quietly. 32 years old. No family. Low-level courier who moved packages for mid-tier operators. 3 nights ago, he picked up a package from a safe house in Brighton Beach. Never delivered it. Went dark. Yesterday morning, Victor Casimir's people found him and spent most of the day trying to convince him to talk. Victor Casimir. The name meant nothing to Ellie. He's the reason your parents are dead. The room tilted. Ellie gripped the edge of the table, coffee sloshing over the rim of her cup. What did you just say? Damien's expression didn't change. Still cold, still controlled. Your father wasn't an accountant, Ellie. Well, he was, but not the kind you think. He laundered money for Victor Casimir's syndicate, moved cash through shell companies, cleaned it, made it legal. He was good at it. So good that Casimir trusted him with financial records spanning 2 decades. Records that could destroy the entire organization. No. Ellie's voice came out strangled. No, that's not... My father worked for a firm downtown. He did taxes. He did both. The firm was a front, a way to legitimize income from trafficking, weapons sales, extortion, political payoffs. Your father had access to everything. Names, accounts, transactions. The kind of information that puts people in prison for life. You're lying. 15 years ago, your father decided he wanted out. He contacted federal prosecutors, offered to testify in exchange for witness protection for himself, your mother, and you. He was scheduled to turn over evidence the day after the fire that killed him. Ellie couldn't breathe. The room was spinning, walls closing in. The fire was an accident, the investigators said. The investigators were paid to say that. Damien's voice stayed flat, clinical. Victor Casimir doesn't leave loose ends. Your father tried to betray him, so Casimir had him killed. Your mother, too. They were going to kill you as well, but you were at a sleepover that night. Lucky. Stop. Ellie stood up so fast her chair toppled backward. Stop talking. This is insane. You're insane. My father was... He was a good man. He was a desperate man. Damien rose slowly, movements controlled. Drowning in debt. Your mother had medical bills from a cancer scare. You were applying to colleges. He took Casimir's money because he needed it, and then he couldn't get out. You don't know that? I know because my father tried to help him. For the first time, emotion cracked through Damien's voice. Just a hairline fracture. Antonio Vescari. My father spent 3 years building a case against Casimir. Your father was supposed to be his key witness. They met twice in secret, planned the whole thing, and then your house burned down and my father's star witness turned into a corpse. Ellie backed away from the table, shaking her head. This isn't real. This is some kind of sick game. So 6 years ago, my father arranged a peace negotiation with Casimir. Neutral ground. Both sides unarmed. He thought he could end the war diplomatically. Damien's jaw tightened. Casimir put a bomb under his car, blew him into pieces small enough to fit in a shoebox. The words hung in the air like smoke. Ellie stared at Damien and saw something she hadn't noticed before. Beneath the cold control and the expensive clothes and the predator's eyes was a man carrying the same weight she'd carried for 15 years. Grief. Rage. The kind of scars that never fully healed. I'm sorry, she whispered, about your father, but that doesn't explain why Leon Petrov had your phone number. Damien moved around the table toward her, not threatening, just closer. Because 3 nights ago, Leon stole something from Casimir, something so valuable that Casimir tore apart his own organization trying to find it, and somehow Leon decided you were the person to give it to. But I don't have anything. I know. Which means either Leon didn't get the chance to make contact before he died, or he hid it somewhere and left you a message we haven't found yet. Damien stopped a few feet away. Either way, Casimir thinks you're the next link, and he'll do to you exactly what he did to Leon if he gets his hands on you first. Ellie's back hit the wall. She hadn't realized she'd been retreating. What did Leon steal? A hard drive. What's on it? Everything. Damien's voice dropped. Financial records, transactions, names, dates, every dirty deal Casimir's made in the last 20 years, including the order to kill your parents. Ellie's knees buckled. She slid down the wall until she was sitting on the floor, head in her hands, trying to process information that felt like it was tearing her brain apart. Damien crouched in front of her, close enough that she could see the faint scar along his jawline, the calluses on his knuckles, the way his eyes weren't quite as cold when he looked at her. I can't protect you from something I don't understand, he said quietly, so I need you to think. Hard. Has anyone contacted you in the last few weeks? Strange phone calls, emails, someone following you? No, nothing. I work 60-hour weeks and go home and sleep. That's my entire life. What about mail, packages? Just bills and junk. Social media? I barely use it. Damien studied her face like he was reading a map. Leon wrote your number on his hand for a reason. He was dying, in agony, and he used his last conscious moments to make sure that number wouldn't be lost. That's not random, that's deliberate. Then he made a mistake. No. Damien shook his head. Leon Petrov was a lot of things, but careless wasn't one of them. If he wrote down your number, it's because you're connected to this somehow. We just have to figure out how. Ellie looked up at him. What if we can't? Then you stay here, under guard, until either Casimir gives up looking for you or I find another way to end this. How long could that take? Months, maybe years. I have a life. You had a life. Damien's voice turned hard again. The moment you answered that phone call, your old life ended. Now you have two choices. Help me figure out what Leon wanted from you and maybe, get some version of normal back, or hide here forever and hope Casimir dies of old age before his people find you. Ellie's throat closed. She pressed the heels of her hands against her eyes, trying to stop the tears that wanted to come. She wouldn't cry, not in front of him, not in front of anyone. Hey, Damien's voice softened just slightly. Look at me. She lowered her hands. You're tougher than you think, he said. You survived losing your parents at 16. You put yourself through nursing school. You work night shifts in an ER where people die in your hands and you show up the next day anyway. That takes strength most people don't have. That's different. No, it's the same. Just a different kind of war. He stood, offered his hand. Come on, there's something I need to show you. Ellie let him pull her to her feet. Her legs felt unsteady. He kept hold of her hand for a moment longer than necessary, not romantic, just steadying, then released it and headed for the door. She followed because she didn't know what else to do. Damien led her through more corridors, down a stone staircase that spiraled into darkness, through a heavy steel door that required a key code and a thumbprint. The air grew colder, damper. They were underground now. Where are we going? Ellie asked. Somewhere no one knows about, except me and 3 other people I'd trust with my life. The corridor opened into a room that looked like something out of a spy movie. Monitors covered one wall, displaying security feeds from cameras positioned all over the estate. Computers hummed. A table in the center held maps, files, photographs connected by red string like some detective's murder board. And on the far wall, pinned up like trophies, were surveillance photos. Victor Casimir's face appeared in dozens of them. An older man, 60s maybe, gray hair, expensive suits, dead eyes. Ellie's stomach turned. That's him? That's him. Damien moved to the table. Built his empire over 40 years, started with protection rackets in Brooklyn, expanded into trafficking, weapons, political corruption. He's connected to at least 70 murders that we can prove. Probably 3 times that many we can't. And my father worked for him. Your father worked for his money. There's a difference. Damien pulled out a file, flipped it open. Your father didn't know what he was getting into at first. By the time he realized the kind of monster Casimir was, he was in too deep. He tried to do the right thing. It got him killed. Ellie stared at Casimir's photograph. The man who'd murdered her parents, who'd stolen 15 years of her life, who wanted her dead now because of a hard drive she didn't have. What was on the drive? She asked. Names, transactions, offshore accounts, shell companies, political payoffs, federal agents on Casimir's payroll, judges, prosecutors, cops, everyone he owns. And more importantly, the contracts, the orders, including the one to kill your parents. You want it for evidence. No. Damien's voice turned cold. I want it to destroy him. Every person on that drive goes down, every corrupt official, every dirty cop, every politician who took his money. And when Casimir's entire empire collapses and he's standing alone with no protection left, then I want him for myself. The venom in his voice made Ellie's skin crawl. Revenge. Justice. He looked at her. There's a difference. Is there? Yes. Because I'm not going to torture him like he tortured my father. I'm not going to burn him alive like he burned your parents. I'm just going to put a bullet in his head and sleep like a baby afterward." Ellie should have been horrified, should have run. But instead, she found herself staring at Casimir's dead-eyed photograph and feeling something hot and vicious uncurl in her chest. She'd spent 15 years being a good person, following rules, helping people, trying to make sense of a world that took her parents away for no goddamn reason. And now she knew the truth. They'd been murdered by a monster who was still walking free. "What do you need from me?" she asked quietly. Damien studied her face. "You're sure?" "No. But I'm here anyway." He pulled out another file, this one thinner, opened it to reveal a single photograph, a younger version of her father, smiling at the camera, holding a little girl with pigtails. Ellie's breath caught. She remembered that day, the park, ice cream, her father laughing while her mother took the picture. "Your father kept this in his desk at the firm," Damien said. "He looked at it every day. My father told me that, said your father loved you more than anything, that the only reason he agreed to testify was to make sure you'd have a future clean of Casimir's shadow." Tears blurred Ellie's vision. She blinked them back. "The night before he died," Damien continued, "your father gave my father something, a fail-safe, insurance in case something went wrong. My father hid it, and when he died 6 years later, that insurance disappeared with him." "What kind of insurance?" "We don't know. My father never told anyone where he put it, but he left a message. One word, hidden in his office safe." Damien pulled out another photograph, a piece of paper with a single word written in shaky handwriting. "Locket." Ellie's world stopped. "What?" Her voice came out barely above a whisper. "Mean something to you?" "My mother, she had a locket, silver, antique. She wore it every day. It was supposed to be mine after—" Ellie's throat closed. "I lost it. After the fire, during the move to foster care, it just disappeared." Damien leaned forward. "What was inside it?" "A picture. Of the three of us. Family photo from when I was little." "Just a photo? Nothing else?" "I don't know. I never opened it. My mother told me not to. She said—" Ellie frowned, trying to remember. "She said it was special, that someday I'd understand why." Damien's expression shifted. Something like hope flickered behind his eyes. "We need to find that locket. I told you, it's gone. It's been 15 years. Nothing's ever really gone. Not if you know where to look." He moved to one of the computers, fingers flying over the keyboard. "After your parents died, you went into foster care. Which agency?" "City Services. I bounced between 3 homes before I aged out at 18. Do you remember which home you were in when the locket disappeared?" Ellie closed her eyes, trying to pull up memories she'd spent years trying to forget. "The second one. The Hendersons. They lived in Queens. I was there for about 8 months. Address? I don't remember the exact try." Ellie forced herself back into those rooms, that house, the foster mother who barely looked at her, the foster father who drank too much and yelled at football games. 30-something Maple, or Oak, one of those tree streets. Damien typed rapidly. "Got it. 3 possible addresses. We'll check all of them." "What are you going to do, knock on doors and ask if they've seen a 15-year-old locket?" "No. I'm going to have my people go through county records, pawn shop inventories, estate sale listings. If that locket still exists anywhere in this city, I'll find it." Ellie watched him work, watched the cold precision return to his movements. This was what he did, what he was good at, finding things, taking things, controlling things. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "Really? It can't just be about revenge." Damien's hand stilled on the keyboard. He didn't turn around. "My father spent his whole life fighting Casimir, building a case, gathering evidence. He died before he could finish it, before he could make that monster pay for everything he'd done. So this is about finishing what he started." "No." Damien turned to face her. "This is about making sure he didn't die for nothing, and making sure you don't either." The words hit harder than Ellie expected. She looked at Damien, really looked at him, and saw past the expensive clothes and the cold eyes and the predator's grace. She saw a man drowning in the same grief that had been pulling her under for 15 years. 2 people broken by the same monster, Maybe that's why he'd really come for her. Not because Leon Petrov wrote down her number, not because of some hard drive, but because he recognized himself in her. Before Ellie could respond, a phone rang. Not hers. She didn't have one anymore. Damien pulled a cell from his pocket, glanced at the screen, and his expression went hard. "What?" he answered. Ellie couldn't hear the other end of the conversation, but she watched Damien's jaw tighten. His knuckles go white around the phone. "When?" he asked. Then, "How many?" A pause. "Don't touch anything. I'm on my way." He ended the call. "What happened?" Ellie asked. Damien looked at her, and for the first time since she'd met him, she saw something close to fear in his eyes. "Your apartment," he said. "Someone hit it 2 hours ago. Tore the place apart. Professional job." Ellie's stomach dropped. "Looking for the drive?" "Probably, but that's not the worst part." Damien moved toward the door. "They left a body." "What?" "One of Casimir's low-level guys, bullet in the head, left on your living room floor like a calling card." Ellie's legs went weak. Why would they kill one of their own people? "Because he failed." Damien's voice turned grim. "Casimir's sending a message. To you, to me, to anyone who thinks about getting in his way. He's done playing games." "What do we do?" "We move faster." Damien grabbed a jacket from a hook by the door. "And we hope like hell that locket is where I think it is. Because if Casimir finds it first—" He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Ellie followed him back through the corridors, her mind racing. A body in her apartment. A locket that might hold the key to everything. A hard drive that could destroy a criminal empire. And somewhere out there, a monster who'd already killed her parents was coming for her next. They emerged into the main hall. Margot appeared from a side room, her expression carefully neutral. "Sir," she said, "there are 2 men at the gate. They say they have information about Leon Petrov." Damien froze. "Did they give names?" "No, but they're not police and they're armed." Damien's hand moved inside his jacket, came out holding a gun. "Get Miss Mercer to the safe room, now." "I'm not going anywhere," Ellie said. "If this is about me, exactly. It's about you, which means you're the target." Damien's voice turned sharp. "Margot, safe room. Lock it from the inside. Don't open it for anyone except me." "Damien!" He turned to face her, and the look in his eyes stopped her cold. "You wanted to help? Then stay alive. That's how you help." Margot grabbed Ellie's arm, pulled her toward a hidden door in the paneling. Ellie resisted, watching Damien head for the entrance, gun in hand, moving like death incarnate. "Miss Mercer," Margot said firmly. "Please." Ellie let herself be led through the hidden door, down another corridor, into a small room lined with monitors showing every angle of the estate. The door closed behind them with a heavy thunk. Electronic locks engaged. On the screens, Ellie watched Damien approach the front entrance, watched the massive wooden doors swing open, watched 2 men step inside, but both armed, both dressed in dark suits that screamed professional. And then she watched Damien raise his gun and fire 3 shots so fast they sounded like one continuous crack of thunder. Both men dropped. Damien stood over their bodies, gun still raised, and Ellie realized with cold, terrible clarity that she wasn't just hiding in a mafia king's mansion. She was trapped in a war zone. And the man who'd promised to protect her had just killed 2 people in his own front hall without hesitation. Margot stood beside her, face impassive, like watching murder was just another Tuesday morning. "Who were they?" Ellie whispered. "Casimir's people." Margot's voice carried no emotion. "They've been testing our defenses all week. Mr. Vescari has been patient, but patience has limits." On the screen, more figures appeared at the edges of the property, moving through the trees. At least 6, maybe more. Damien spoke into a radio. Security personnel materialized from various positions around the estate. Armed, organized, moving with military precision. "This is happening," Ellie breathed. "This is really happening." "Yes," Margot said simply. "Mr. Vescari was right to bring you here. Casimir has committed. He's coming for you regardless of cost. And now," she gestured to the screens, "now the war begins properly." Ellie watched men with guns disappear into the forest surrounding the estate, watched Damien coordinate from the entrance, calm and controlled, even with two corpses bleeding out on his marble floor. And she understood with brutal finality that there was no going back, no returning to her apartment, no going back to her shifts at the hospital, no reclaiming the life she'd built from nothing after her parents died. That life was over, burned to ash the moment she answered a wrong number. All she had now was this: a Gothic mansion, a mafia king with dead eyes and careful hands, and the terrible knowledge that her parents hadn't died in an accident. They'd been murdered. And the same man who'd killed them was coming for her next, unless she found that locket first. Unless she found the truth her father had hidden 15 years ago. Unless she became something other than a frightened nurse hiding in a safe room while men killed each other in the halls outside. Ellie pressed her hand against the monitor, watching Damien give orders to people who obeyed without question. "I need to learn how to fight," she said quietly. Margot looked at her. "Mr. Vescari won't allow—" "I don't care what he allows." Ellie turned to face the older woman. "If I'm going to survive this, I can't just hide. I need to be able to protect myself." Something shifted in Margot's expression. Respect, maybe, or recognition. "I'll speak with him," she said, "when the immediate danger passes." "Thank you." They stood in silence, watching the screens, watching Damien's people secure the perimeter, watching the bodies get dragged away. And Ellie made a promise to herself. She would find that locket, she would find the truth, and she would make Victor Casimir pay for every single thing he'd stolen from her, not because Damien wanted revenge, but because she did. The gunfire stopped at dawn. Ellie spent 6 hours locked in the safe room watching monitors that showed Damien's estate transform into a battlefield. She counted 14 bodies dragged from the property line before she stopped counting. Watched security teams sweep the grounds in tactical formation. Watched Damien coordinate everything from the entrance hall with the same cold precision he probably used to order coffee. When Margot finally unlocked the door, Ellie's legs had gone numb from sitting. "It's over?" she asked. "For now." Margot's face looked older in the harsh overhead lights. "Mr. Vescari wants to see you." Ellie followed her through corridors that smelled like gunpowder and something copper she tried not to think about. The entrance hall had been cleaned. The marble floors gleamed. No sign of the two men Damien had killed except for a faint discoloration near the door that could have been a shadow. Damien stood by the windows, still holding his gun, staring out at the grounds. He didn't turn when they entered. "Casualties?" Margot asked. "3 injured, none critical." Margot took a round to the shoulder. "He'll live." Damien's voice sounded like gravel. "Casimir lost at least 9, maybe more. They dragged some bodies back with them." "And their objective?" "Reconnaissance, testing our response time, mapping our defenses." He finally turned. His shirt was stained with blood that probably wasn't his. His eyes looked hollow. "They weren't trying to breach, just probe. See how hard we'd push back." "Now they know," Margot said. "Now they know." Damien's gaze shifted to Ellie. "You okay?" "No." The word came out sharper than she intended. "I just watched people die on security cameras. I'm the opposite of okay." "Fair enough." He set the gun on a side table. "Margot, give us the room." Margot left without a word. The door closed with a soft click. Damien crossed to a liquor cabinet and poured 2 glasses of something amber, handed one to Ellie. "Drink. It's 7 in the morning. Drink anyway." She took it. The liquid burned going down but settled something in her chest. Damien downed his in one swallow and poured another. "You killed them," Ellie said. "Yes." Without hesitation. "Yes." "Does it bother you?" Damien looked at her over the rim of his glass. "They came here to kill you, to torture information out of you first, then put a bullet in your head and dump your body somewhere it wouldn't be found for weeks. So no, it doesn't bother me." "How many people have you killed?" "Personally or ordered killed?" The casual way he said it made Ellie's stomach turn. Jesus Christ. "You wanted the truth. I'm giving it to you." He set down his glass. "I'm not a good man, Ellie. I don't pretend to be. I run an empire built on violence and fear and blood. People do what I say because they're either loyal or terrified, usually both. And when someone threatens what's mine," his jaw tightened, "I eliminate the threat permanently. I'm not yours. You're under my protection. That makes you mine. Like it or not." He moved closer, not threatening, just tired. You think I wanted this? You think I enjoy watching my people get shot defending some nurse who answered the wrong phone call? Then let me go. Can't. Casimir knows you're here now, knows I'm protecting you. If I let you walk, he'll see it as weakness. And in my world, weakness gets you killed. Ellie's hands tightened around the glass. So I'm trapped. You're alive. There's a difference. Is there? Damien stared at her for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone and tapped the screen, handed it to her. The screen showed a news article, a photograph, a body covered by a sheet on a city sidewalk. The headline read, "Unidentified woman found dead in downtown alley." Keep reading, Damien said quietly. Ellie scrolled. The article described the victim, early 30s, blonde, no identification. Cause of death listed as blunt force trauma. Police seeking information. I don't understand. Look at the date. Yesterday. The article was from yesterday afternoon. They think it's you, Damien said. Casimir's people dumped that body as a message. Same approximate age and build as you. Dyed her hair to match yours. Destroyed her face and hands so identification would take time. And now the whole city thinks you're dead. Ellie's blood went cold. Who was she? No one. Wrong place, wrong time. Probably homeless. Someone who wouldn't be missed quickly. His voice carried no emotion, just facts. Casimir wanted to make it look like his people found you before I could protect you. Wanted me to think I'd lost. That's sick. That's effective. It buys him time. While the cops waste resources identifying a corpse that isn't you, he can move freely. No manhunt, no pressure, just business as usual. Ellie handed back the phone, hands shaking. Someone died because of me. Someone died because of Casimir. Don't confuse cause and effect. Damien pocketed the phone. The woman he killed was dead the moment she looked like a useful prop. You had nothing to do with it. That doesn't make it better. No, but it makes it true. He turned back to the window. My people found something. 3 possible locations for your foster home. We start searching today. You're still going after the locket. More than ever. Casimir just committed 9 men to probe our defenses. That's expensive, risky, which means he's desperate. And desperate men make mistakes. Damien glanced back at her. Whatever's on that hard drive, it's worth more to him than money, more than territory. It's worth exposing himself to move against me directly. That doesn't happen unless he's terrified of what it contains. Ellie set down her glass before she dropped it. When do we leave? We don't. I do. You stay here. No. The word came out harder than she expected. You said I needed to help, that I needed to be part of this. So I'm coming with you. Too dangerous. Everything's dangerous now. I watched people get shot last night. I saw you kill 2 men without blinking. I'm already in danger. At least let me do something about it. Damien studied her face. You've changed. You would too if you spent 6 hours in a locked room watching monitors. Ellie crossed her arms. I'm done hiding. I'm done being protected like some fragile thing that might break. If we're going to find that locket, I'm coming. Those were my parents, my childhood, my memories. I'm not sitting in a safe room while you search through them without me. Something shifted in Damien's expression. Not quite approval, but close. Fine, he said. But you follow my orders exactly. No arguments, no hesitation. If I tell you to run, you run. If I tell you to hide, you hide. Understood? Understood. Good. We leave in 20 minutes. He headed for the door, stopped. And Ellie? If something goes wrong out there, if Casimir's people find us, I need you to promise me something. What? Don't let them take you alive. The words hung in the air like poison. Ellie stared at him. You want me to... I want you to survive. But if survival means torture, if it means Casimir's people spending hours breaking you apart to get information you don't have. His jaw tightened. There are worse things than dying quickly. Promise me you won't let it get that far. How am I supposed to... Damien pulled something from his pocket. A small revolver. 2 shots. He set it on the table between them. Last resort, he said quietly. If everything goes to hell and you're out of options. Better than the alternative. Ellie looked at the gun like it was a snake. I can't. You're an ER nurse. You know what the human body can endure. You've seen torture victims come through your doors. You know what it looks like when someone's been broken. His voice dropped even lower. Promise me you won't end up as one of those cases. Ellie's throat closed. She picked up the gun with shaking hands. It was heavier than she expected. Cold. Final. I promise, she whispered. Good. Damien turned away. 20 minutes. Wear something you can run in. The first location was a bust. The house stood on a tree-lined street in Queens that looked exactly like 1,000 other tree-lined streets in Queens. Neat lawns, minivans in driveways, kids' bikes on porches. Damien parked 3 houses down in an unmarked sedan with tinted windows. Stay in the car, he said. You told me I could come. You're here. You're not sitting in a safe room, but you're also not knocking on doors where Casimir's people might be watching. He pulled on a baseball cap and aviator sunglasses. 10 minutes. If I'm not back, call the number programmed into that phone and tell them Red Cardinal. They'll know what to do. He was gone before Ellie could argue. She watched him walk up to the house. Knock. A woman answered, middle-aged, wearing yoga pants and a sweatshirt. They talked for maybe 3 minutes. The woman shook her head. Damien showed her something on his phone, more head shaking. Then he thanked her and walked back to the car. Henderson family moved to Florida 8 years ago, he said as he started the engine. New owners never heard of a locket. On to the next one. The second location took 40 minutes to reach. Another neighborhood, similar houses. Different woman at the door, older this time, suspicious eyes, arms crossed. This conversation lasted longer. The woman disappeared inside, came back with a box. Damien sorted through it while Ellie watched from the car, heart hammering. He returned empty-handed. Found some of your old school papers, he said. No locket. She remembered you, though. Said you barely spoke the whole time you lived there. I didn't have much to say. Ellie's voice sounded hollow. She kept your things. Said she always hoped you'd come back for them someday. Damien pulled back into traffic. Good woman. Bad timing. The third location sat in a neighborhood that had seen better days. Chain-link fences, bars on windows. The kind of street where people minded their own business because asking questions got you hurt. This one's different, Damien said as he parked. House has been foreclosed, sitting empty for 2 years. County records show it's scheduled for demolition next month. So no one to ask, which means we search it ourselves. He reached under his seat and pulled out a lockpick set. You wanted to be involved. Here's your chance. They approached the house from the back, moving through an overgrown yard where weeds had reclaimed everything. The rear door took Damien about 90 seconds to open. Then they were inside and Ellie's stomach dropped. She knew this house. The kitchen, the water-stained wallpaper, the linoleum floor with the crack running through it like a scar. This is it, she whispered. This is where I lost the locket. Damien pulled out a flashlight. Where specifically? I don't know. I just remember waking up one morning and it was gone. I tore my room apart looking for it. The foster mother said I probably lost it at school, but I never wore it to school. I kept it in my nightstand drawer. Show me. Ellie led him upstairs. The steps creaked under their weight. Every sound felt amplified in the empty house. Her old room sat at the end of the hall, small, dark, smelling like mold and abandonment. She stood in the doorway and felt 15 years collapse like a house of cards. That was my bed, she said, pointing at bare walls where a twin mattress used to sit. Nightstand was there. Window looked out over the backyard. Damien moved through the room systematically, checking floorboards, examining walls, running his fingers along baseboards. Ellie watched him work, memories flooding back. Cold nights, thin blankets, lying awake listening to the foster parents argue downstairs. Got something, Damien said. He'd pulled back a section of loose baseboard near the closet. Behind it sat a small space, maybe 6 inches deep. And inside that space was a dusty shoebox. Ellie's breath caught. Damien lifted the box carefully, set it on the floor. Inside were trinkets, a broken watch, some old coins, a few pieces of cheap jewelry. And at the bottom, wrapped in tissue paper, was a silver locket. Ellie's knees went weak. She dropped to the floor beside Damien, hands shaking as she reached for it. The locket was tarnished, the chain broken. But it was definitely hers. She'd recognize it anywhere. The delicate engraving, the tiny clasp her mother used to open with her thumbnail. How did it end up here?
she whispered. Foster kid who had the room after you probably found it. Stashed it with their own hidden things. Damien pulled out his phone for light. Open it.
Ellie's fingers fumbled with the clasp. It took 3 tries. The locket finally popped open. Inside sat the photograph she remembered. Her parents smiling, holding a much younger version of herself. But behind the photo, pressed against the back of the locket, was something else. A small key. And beneath it, engraved in letters so tiny they were almost invisible. Safe Deposit Box 447, First National. Ellie stared at the engraving until the letters burned into her vision. Your father was smarter than Casimir gave him credit for, Damien said quietly. He left you a trail, something only you could follow, something that looked like a sentimental keepsake instead of evidence. Safe Deposit Box? Ellie's voice came out numb. At First National, that's downtown, near where my father used to work. Can you access it? I don't know. I was 16 when they died. I don't even know if my name is on the account. Only one way to find out. Damien stood, offering his hand. We go tomorrow, first thing, before Casimir realizes we're getting close. Ellie let him pull her to her feet. She clutched the locket in her fist, key pressing into her palm. 15 years she'd thought this was lost forever. 15 years she'd believed her parents died in an accident. And now she was holding proof that everything she'd been told was a lie. Damien, she said as they headed back downstairs. What if the box is empty? What if my father never got a chance to... Then we find another way. His voice was firm. But your father went to a lot of trouble to hide this. He wouldn't have done that for nothing. They were halfway to the back door when Damien stopped. What? Ellie asked. Shh. He held up one hand, head tilted, listening. Ellie heard it then. Car engines, more than one, coming closer. Damien's expression went hard. We need to leave. Now. They moved fast through the kitchen. Damien eased the back door open, peered out, then swore under his breath. What? Ellie whispered. 3 cars. Front and back. At least 8 men. Professional positions. He pulled his gun. Someone tipped them off. How? No one knew we were coming here? Someone always knows. Damien grabbed her arm. Basement, now. They descended into darkness that smelled like wet concrete and rot. Damien's flashlight cut through the black, revealing a space filled with broken furniture and water damage. There, he said, pointing to a small window near the ceiling. Can you fit through that? Maybe. Where does it lead? Side yard, hopefully clear. You go first. I'll cover you. What about you? I'll be right behind you. He moved to the basement stairs, gun raised. Go, now. Ellie scrambled onto a stack of moldy cardboard boxes and pushed at the window. It was painted shut. She slammed her palm against the frame once, twice. On the third hit, it gave with a crack that sounded like a gunshot in the enclosed space. They're inside, Damien said from the stairs. His voice was still calm, still controlled. Faster. Ellie forced the window open. Squeezed through head first. The ground was farther down than she expected. She landed hard on overgrown grass, ankles screaming in protest. Rolled, came up gasping. Behind her, gunfire erupted inside the house. Damien! She screamed. No response, just more gunshots, shouting, breaking glass. Ellie stood frozen, every instinct screaming at her to run, but she couldn't, not without him. Then a figure crashed through the window after her. For a terrible second, she thought it was someone else. But no. Damien hit the ground in a roll, came up running, grabbed her arm. Move! They ran through the side yard, vaulted a chain-link fence, hit the street at a sprint. Behind them, men burst from the house. Shouts echoed. More gunfire cracked through the air. Damien dragged Ellie between 2 houses, through a narrow gap that scraped her shoulders. Out into another backyard, over another fence, through a hedge that tore at her clothes. The car! She gasped. Compromised. Keep running. They emerged onto a commercial street. Traffic. Pedestrians. Damien pulled her into a crowd outside a convenience store, both of them breathing hard, trying to blend in. You're bleeding, Ellie said. Damien's shoulder was soaked with blood, his shirt torn, but his face showed nothing, just a graze. He pulled out his phone with his free hand. I'm calling for extraction. Who knew we were coming here? That's what I'm going to find out. He made the call. spoke in rapid-fire sentences Ellie couldn't quite follow, then ended it. 5 minutes. There's a coffee shop 2 blocks west. We wait there. They walked fast but not running. Just 2 people hurrying somewhere. Nothing suspicious. Ellie kept her hand wrapped around the locket in her pocket, feeling the key press against her palm. The coffee shop was packed with morning commuters. They grabbed a table in the back corner where Damien could watch both exits. He was still bleeding. "You need a hospital, Sitpa." "I need to figure out who sold us out." His voice was ice. 3 people knew where we were going today. Margot, my head of security, and my second in command. You think one of them? I think someone told Casimir exactly where to find us, and I'm going to find out who. A black SUV pulled up outside. Damien stood. "That's our ride. Let's go." The extraction was smooth, professional. The driver didn't speak, just got them out of the neighborhood and onto the highway before Damien even finished giving directions. Within 30 minutes, they were back at the estate. Margot met them at the door, face pale. "Sir, we have a problem." "Multiple problems," Damien corrected. "What's yours?" "Marcus Chen is missing, your second in command. He left for a supply run this morning and never came back." Damien's expression went absolutely flat. "When?" 2 hours ago. Right before we were ambushed." Damien's jaw clenched. "Get everyone in the main hall, now. Full accounting. I want to know who's here and who isn't." "Sir." "Now, Margot." She hurried off. Damien turned to Ellie. "Go to your room. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone except me." "What are you going to do?" "Find out if Marcus betrayed me. And if he did," his hand tightened on his gun, "make sure he regrets it." Ellie wanted to argue, wanted to stay. But the look on Damien's face stopped her cold. This wasn't the controlled mafia king she'd been living with. This was something colder, something lethal. She went to her room, locked the door, and waited. An hour passed, then 2. Ellie paced the room like a caged animal, locket clutched in one hand, the small revolver Damien had given her in the other. Every sound in the corridor made her jump. Every creak and groan of the old house set her pulse racing. Finally, a knock. "Ellie? It's me." She opened the door. Damien stood there looking like he'd aged 10 years. His shoulder was bandaged, his shirt clean, but his eyes were empty. "Marcus?" she asked. "In the wind. Took 50,000 from our emergency fund and disappeared." Damien moved past her into the room. "He's been feeding information to Casimir for at least 6 months, maybe longer. That's how they knew about Leon Petrov, about you, about today." "I'm sorry. Don't be. This is my failure. I trusted the wrong person." He sat heavily on the edge of her bed. "But it's over now. Marcus is gone. The leak is sealed. We can move forward. Tomorrow. The bank. Tomorrow." He looked up at her. "Are you ready for this? Really ready? Because once we open that safe deposit box, there's no going back. Whatever your father left you, it's going to change everything." Ellie thought about the woman found dead in an alley with her face destroyed. Thought about the bodies in Damien's entrance hall. Thought about 15 years of believing lies. "I'm ready," she said. Damien nodded, stood. "Get some rest. We leave at 8. He was halfway to the door when Ellie spoke again. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "Really, not the revenge angle. Not finishing what your father started. Why are you risking everything for someone you barely know?" Damien stopped, didn't turn around. "Because when my father died," he said quietly, "no one helped me. No one stood between me and Casimir. I had to claw my way up alone, build an empire alone, survive alone." He glanced back at her. "I look at you, and I see myself at 16, lost, scared, drowning in a world that doesn't make sense, and I think, maybe I can give you what no one gave me." "What's that?" "A choice." He turned fully to face her. "You can walk away from this. After tomorrow. After we see what's in that box. You can take your answers and disappear. New identity, new life. I'll make sure Casimir never finds you. And if I don't want to disappear?" Something flickered in his eyes. "Then you stay, and we finish this together." He left before she could respond. Ellie sat on the bed holding the locket and tried to imagine a life where she just walked away. Left all of this behind. Started over somewhere Casimir couldn't reach her. But she couldn't, because that woman in the alley died in her place, because her parents were murdered to keep secrets that might be sitting in a safe deposit box downtown, because Damien Vescari looked at her like she was worth saving instead of a burden to be managed. She lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling until sleep finally dragged her under. And in her dreams, her father stood in a burning house with a locket in his hand, trying to tell her something she couldn't quite hear over the roar of flames. Tomorrow, she thought, tomorrow I'll finally understand. But when tomorrow came, nothing went the way any of them expected. First National Bank stood in the financial district like a monument to old money and older secrets. Marble columns, bronze doors, security cameras covering every angle. Damien parked across the street and studied the building through tinted windows. They'll want identification, he said. Probably 2 forms. The key alone won't be enough. I have my driver's license. And nothing else. No passport, no birth certificate. Everything burned in the fire with your parents. He drummed his fingers on the steering wheel. They might turn you away. Then we make them understand. Or we find another way in. Damien pulled out his phone. I have someone inside. Manager owes me a favor, but using it burns that connection permanently. Last resort only. Let me try first. You sure? Ellie looked at the bank. At the normal people walking in and out like this was just another Tuesday. I'm sure. They crossed the street together. Inside, the bank smelled like air conditioning and quiet wealth. Ellie approached a desk where a woman in her 40s sat typing at a computer. I need access to a safe deposit box, Ellie said. The woman looked up, smiled professionally. Of course. Box number? 447. And your name? Ellie Mercer. But the box might be under... Ellie hesitated. It might be under Thomas Mercer. My father. He died 15 years ago. The woman's smile faltered. I see. Do you have documentation proving you're the beneficiary? Just this. Ellie pulled out the key, set it on the desk. The woman picked it up, examined it. I'm sorry, but without proper documentation, I can't authorize access. You'll need to provide proof of identity, proof of relation to the account holder, and ideally a court order granting you access to the deceased's assets. I have my driver's license. That's a start. But we'd also need your father's death certificate, proof of estate settlement, and authorization from the executor. The woman's voice stayed pleasant but firm. Bank policy, I'm sure you understand. Ellie felt everything slipping away. Please, this is important. My father left something for me, and I understand, but policy is policy. If you can bring the necessary documents, we'd be happy to help you then. Damien stepped forward, placed a business card on the desk. Perhaps you could call your manager. Tell him Damien Vescari would consider it a personal favor. The woman's face went pale. She picked up the card like it might explode, looked from Damien to Ellie and back again. I'll just be a moment. She disappeared through a door marked Employees Only. Will that work? Ellie asked. Depends on how much he values breathing. Damien's voice was flat. 3 minutes later, a man in an expensive suit emerged. Late 50s, receding hairline, sweating despite the air conditioning. Mr. Vescari, he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. What a pleasant surprise. Barnes, Damien gestured to Ellie. Miss Mercer needs access to box 447. I'd consider it a personal favor if you could expedite the process. Barnes's smile became strained. Of course. Though you understand we have protocols. Spums. I understand you have a wife and 3 children living in Westchester. I understand your mortgage is underwater. I understand the gambling problem you think no one knows about. Damien's voice never rose. And I understand that helping Miss Mercer access her father's box would be a small thing, barely worth mentioning, certainly not worth the alternative. The color drained from Barnes's face. Right this way, Miss Mercer. He led them through security, down a corridor, into the vault room where hundreds of safe deposit boxes lined the walls like metal graves. Barnes located 447 and inserted the bank's master key. Ellie added hers. The box slid free. I'll give you privacy, Barnes said quickly, then fled. Ellie and Damien stood alone in the vault room. The box sat on a small table between them. Ellie's hand shook as she reached for the lid.
"Wait," Damien said, "before you open it. Whatever's inside, it might not be what you expect. Your father might have left nothing, or something that makes things worse instead of better. Are you ready for that?"
"No," Ellie said, "but I'm doing it anyway." She lifted the lid. Inside sat 3 things: a hard drive, an envelope with her name written in her father's handwriting, and underneath them, a photograph she'd never seen before. Her father shaking hands with a younger Victor Casimir, both men smiling, both dressed in expensive suits, looking like old friends. Ellie's world tilted. "No," she whispered. "No, that's not... that can't be." Damien picked up the photograph. His expression went absolutely cold. "Your father and Casimir. Together." "But you said my father was trying to escape, that he wanted to testify." "I said that's what my father told me." Damien flipped the photo over. On the back, a date. 20 years ago. And below it 2 words in handwriting she didn't recognize. Senior partners. Ellie grabbed the envelope with shaking hands, tore it open. Inside sat a letter. Multiple pages. Her father's handwriting. She read the first paragraph and her legs gave out. Damien caught her, lowered her into a chair. "What does it say?" Ellie couldn't speak, could barely breathe. She handed him the letter. He read in silence. And as he did, something terrible spread across his face. "Your father and Casimir weren't enemies," he said finally. "They were partners. Built the whole operation together from nothing. Your father handled the money. Casimir handled the violence. 50-50, split on everything." "That's not possible." "It's right here in his own words. He describes deals, operations, murders they ordered together." Damien kept reading. "I helped Victor build an empire. I cleaned the blood money. I made us rich beyond measure. And I never questioned where it came from or who died to produce it." Ellie pressed her hands over her mouth to stop the scream building in her throat. "But then," Damien continued, voice flat, 5 years into the partnership, your father met your mother. She didn't know what he did. Thought he was just an accountant. They got married, had you. And suddenly your father started seeing the empire he'd built for what it really was, started having nightmares about the people he'd helped Casimir hurt. So he tried to get out. So he tried to steal everything, the whole empire, every account, every asset. He was going to turn over evidence to the feds, yes, but not to destroy Casimir, to take his place." Damien looked up from the letter, and his eyes were empty. "Your father wasn't a hero trying to escape a monster. He was a monster trying to eliminate his competition." The vault room spun. Ellie couldn't process the words, couldn't make them fit with the man she remembered. The father who taught her to ride a bike, who made terrible pancakes on Sunday mornings, who read her bedtime stories about princesses and dragons. "Keep reading," she whispered. Damien's voice was like gravel. "Casimir found out before I could execute the plan. He came to the house. Not to kill me, to talk, to offer a compromise. He said we could split everything clean, go our separate ways. I almost agreed." "What stopped him?" But your mother heard us talking. Heard everything. She confronted me after Casimir left, called me a monster. Said she was taking you and disappearing. That she'd rather live in poverty than let you grow up thinking your father was a good man." Damien's hands tightened on the pages. "I couldn't let her do that. Couldn't let her take you away. So I..." He stopped reading. Ellie's entire body had gone numb. "What? So he what?" Damien looked at her, and she saw something in his eyes she'd never seen before. Pity. "Finish it," she said. "Ellie, finish the goddamn letter." Damien's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "So I called Casimir back, told him I'd changed my mind, told him I wanted to make a deal. He came that night. And together we made it look like an accident. The fire. The investigators who ruled it accidental. I paid them. I planned it all." Ellie couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The vault room felt like it was shrinking. "Your mother begged me at the end," Damien continued, "begged me to let her live, to let you keep your mother. But I couldn't. She knew too much. She'd take you away, ruin everything. So I made sure you were at that sleepover, made sure you'd be safe. And then I let the fire take her." The letter fell from Damien's hands. Ellie sat perfectly still, staring at nothing, while her entire world collapsed into ash. Her father hadn't died trying to protect her. He'd killed her mother, and Casimir hadn't been the monster who destroyed her family. Her father had. Ellie. Damien's voice seemed to come from very far away. I'm sorry. I'm so goddamn sorry. She stood on legs that didn't feel solid, picked up the hard drive with numb fingers. What's on this? Probably everything your father promised. Every account, every transaction, every piece of evidence needed to destroy Casimir's empire. Good. Ellie's voice sounded hollow, empty, like someone else was speaking through her. Then we use it. Ellie, you wanted revenge against Casimir. I want revenge against both of them. She turned to face him, and something had changed in her eyes. Something hard and cold and broken. My father might be dead, but Casimir's still breathing, so we're going to take everything from him, every asset, every connection, every piece of the empire they built together, and then we're going to burn it all to the fucking ground. Damien stared at her. Are you sure? I'm sure that the man I thought was my father murdered my mother. I'm sure that Victor Casimir helped him do it, and I'm sure that neither of them deserve to have their names remembered as anything but monsters. She clutched the hard drive. So yes, I'm sure. This changes our leverage. If Casimir knows your father was his partner, then he knows this drive contains just as much evidence against my father's legacy as his own, which means he'll destroy it the moment he gets his hands on it. Ellie's jaw tightened. We move first. We hit him before he realizes we have it, and we don't stop until he's dead and everything they built is gone. Damien studied her face for a long moment. Then slowly, deliberately, he nodded. Okay. Okay. You wanted a choice. This is yours. He picked up her father's letter. We burn this, destroy the photograph. No one ever knows your father was anything but Casimir's victim, and then we use this drive to tear apart everything he and Casimir built. What if someone finds out the truth? Then we make sure they don't. His voice turned cold. I'm good at making inconvenient truths disappear. They stood in the vault room surrounded by metal boxes holding other people's secrets, other families' buried truths, and Ellie felt something fundamental shift inside her chest. She'd come here looking for answers. She'd found them, and they'd destroyed every good memory she had left. Let's go, she said. We have a monster to kill. But as they left the bank, hard drive hidden in her jacket, Ellie couldn't shake the image of that photograph. Her father and Casimir, smiling, partners. And a terrible new question formed in her mind. If her father had been willing to kill her mother to protect his empire, what else had he done? What other bodies were buried in the foundation of the life she thought she'd known? And most terrifying of all, what would she be willing to do to avenge a mother murdered by the man who was supposed to love her most? The answer, she realized as Damien's car pulled away from the bank, was simple. Anything, everything, whatever it took. Even if it meant becoming the very thing her father had been, a monster wearing a human face. The hard drive sat on Damien's desk like a bomb waiting to detonate. Ellie stared at it from across the room, arms wrapped around herself, trying to keep the pieces of her world from scattering completely. 3 hours since they'd left the bank. 3 hours since she'd learned her father was a monster. 3 hours since every memory of her childhood had curdled into something poisonous. Damien worked at his computer, downloading the drive's contents, his face illuminated by the screen's cold glow. He hadn't spoken since they'd returned to the estate, just locked them in his private study and started the extraction. How much longer? Ellie asked. Encryption's military grade. Another 20 minutes. He didn't look up. Your father wasn't taking chances. My father. The words tasted like ash. I don't even know what that means anymore. It means he was smart enough to document everything he and Casimir built together, and paranoid enough to hide it where only you could find it. Damien's fingers moved across the keyboard, which means he expected Casimir might kill him, expected you'd come looking for answers someday. Why leave me answers at all? Why not just let me believe the lie? Guilt, maybe, or insurance. If Casimir ever came after you, this drive was your leverage, your proof that you knew everything, that if you died, the information would go public. He glanced at her. Your father might have been a monster, but he was trying to protect you in his own twisted way. Ellie laughed, and it came out broken. By murdering my mother? By building an empire on blood and then leaving me the keys to it? I didn't say it made sense, just that he tried. The computer beeped. Damien's expression shifted as files started populating across the screen. Financial records, transaction logs, encrypted documents, video files, photographs. Jesus, he breathed. This is everything. 20 years of operations, names, dates, account numbers, offshore holdings. His eyes widened. And recordings. Your father recorded conversations, meetings, deals going down. Can you use it? Can I? Damien looked at her like she'd asked if water was wet. Ellie, this drive contains enough evidence to dismantle Casimir's entire operation. Every corrupt official, every dirty cop, every politician on his payroll. I can bury him so deep he'll never see daylight again. Then do it. It's not that simple. Yes, it is. Ellie moved across the room until she stood beside his desk. We take this to the FBI, federal prosecutors, whoever will listen, and we watch Casimir's world burn. And your father's legacy burns with it. Damien's voice was gentle. Every file on this drive implicates him just as much as Casimir. The world will know Thomas Mercer wasn't a victim. He was a founding partner in one of the most brutal criminal syndicates in the country. Good. Let them know. Let everyone know what he really was. Are you sure? Because once this goes public, your life changes forever. You become the daughter of a monster. Every time someone searches your name, that's what they'll find. Ellie's hands clenched into fists. I'd rather be the daughter of a monster who told the truth than live one more day believing a lie. My mother deserves that. She deserves people knowing she was murdered by the man who was supposed to love her. Damien studied her face for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, but we don't go to the FBI yet. Too risky. Casimir has people everywhere. The moment this drive hits official channels, he'll know, and he'll run. So what do? We set a trap. We leak just enough information to make Casimir desperate, make him think we're about to go public. And when he comes for us, Damien's voice turned cold. We end it. You want to use me as bait. I want to finish this. On our terms. Not sitting in some federal courthouse while lawyers spend 5 years building a case that might fall apart on a technicality. He stood. Casimir killed my father. Helped your father kill your mother. I'm not letting him die comfortably in a prison cell 20 years from now. I want him dead. Soon. And I want him to know exactly why. Ellie understood what he was really asking. Legal justice versus the kind that came from a bullet. The safe path versus the final one. What's the plan? She asked. We let Casimir know we have the drive. We tell him we're willing to make a trade. The drive for safe passage out of the country. He'll agree because he has no choice. But he'll also plan to kill us the moment he gets his hands on it. So we kill him first. Damien pulled out his phone. I have a location. Neutral ground. Public enough that he can't just roll in with an army. Private enough that we can control the environment. Where? The old lakeside cabin. The one from your childhood. Your father's message mentioned it. That's where he and Casimir used to meet. Where they planned operations. It's the perfect place for this to end. Ellie's stomach twisted. That cabin burned down years ago. There's nothing left but foundation and memories. Exactly, which means no civilians, no collateral damage, just us and Casimir and 2 decades of blood between us. He started typing a message on his phone. I'm reaching out now, setting up the meet for tomorrow night. That's too soon. That's the point. We move fast. Keep him off balance. He'll scramble to put together a team, won't have time to plan something elaborate. Damien hit send. And while he's focused on the meet, my people will be positioning. Snipers, backup, every advantage we can get. You're going to kill him regardless of what happens at that cabin. Yes. What if he brings 100 men? Then 100 men die. Damien's voice was flat, final. I've been preparing for this fight for 6 years. Every resource I have, every person I trust, they're all ready. Casimir thinks he's the predator. But tomorrow night, he's walking into a slaughter. Ellie should have been horrified, should have argued for the legal route, for letting the system handle it. But when she closed her eyes, she saw her mother's face, heard her father's words in that letter. She begged me at the end. I want to be there, she said. Absolutely not. I want to be there when he dies. I want him to know who I am, what my father did, what he helped do.
And I want to watch the light leave his eyes, knowing my mother is finally avenged. Damien's jaw tightened. It's too dangerous. Everything's been dangerous since I answered that phone call. This is my fight just as much as yours. Maybe more. So either I come with you to that cabin, or I find my own way there.
They stared at each other across the desk. Ellie saw the moment he realized she meant it, that she'd follow him whether he agreed or not. Fine, he said finally. But you stay behind cover. You follow my orders exactly. And if things go sideways, you run. No arguments, no hesitation. Understood? Understood. Good. He turned back to his computer. Now get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be the longest day of your life. Ellie left him working and wandered the empty corridors of the estate. The house felt different now, less like a fortress and more like a tomb. Every shadow held ghosts, every room whispered with violence. She ended up in the library, floor-to-ceiling books that probably cost more than she'd earn in 10 lifetimes. She pulled one at random, didn't read it, just held it in her hands and tried to remember what normal felt like. The door opened behind her. Margot entered carrying a tray, tea, sandwiches, food Ellie had no appetite for. Thought you might be hungry, Margot said quietly. I'm not. Eat anyway, you'll need your strength. Margot set down the tray, started to leave, stopped. He cares about you, you know. Ellie looked up. What? Mr. Vescari. He doesn't let people in easily, doesn't trust, doesn't connect. But you've gotten under his skin somehow. I've watched him for 15 years, never seen him like this. Like what? Afraid. Margot's voice was soft. He's terrified something will happen to you tomorrow, that he won't be able to protect you. That's why he's working himself into the ground tonight, preparing, planning, trying to control every variable. Ellie's chest tightened. I didn't ask him to care. No one asks. It just happens. Margot moved toward the door. Be careful tomorrow, Miss Mercer. War makes people do terrible things, even good people. She left Ellie alone with the tea and the books and the terrible knowledge that tomorrow night everything would end, one way or another. Sleep didn't come. Ellie lay in bed watching the ceiling, trying not to think about her father's letter, about her mother's final moments, about the cabin where it would all end. At 4 a.m, she gave up, got dressed, found Damien still in his study, surrounded by maps and tactical plans and coffee cups. Couldn't sleep? He asked without looking up. No. Me either. He pushed back from the desk, rubbed his eyes. I keep running scenarios. Ways this could go wrong. Ways Casimir could surprise us. And there are 1,000 ways to die tomorrow night, but only one way to win. He stood, moved to the window. I need you to understand something. If I tell you to run, you run. Even if it means leaving me behind, even if it means I die. You get out. You take that hard drive. You go to the FBI. You make sure this wasn't for nothing. I'm not leaving you. Yes, you are. Because that's the deal. That's the only way I'm letting you come. He turned to face her. Promise me. Damien, promise me, Ellie. If it comes down to you or me, you choose you. Every time. She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him she wouldn't abandon him, but the look in his eyes stopped her. I promise, she whispered. Good. He crossed the room, stood close enough that she could see the exhaustion etched into his face. I'm going to kill him tomorrow. For my father, for your mother. For everyone Casimir's destroyed over the years. And when it's done, you're free. You take the drive and you disappear. Start over somewhere he never touched. What about you? I'll probably be dead. He said it like he was commenting on the weather. But if I'm not, I'll make sure the rest of Casimir's organization crumbles, finish what we started, and then maybe I'll find a way to live with everything I've done. Ellie reached up, touched his face. He flinched like he'd been burned. Don't, he said roughly. Don't look at me like that. Like what? Like I'm someone worth saving. I'm not. I'm just another monster who happens to be on your side. That's not true. I've killed 17 people, Ellie, personally, with these hands, and I've ordered the deaths of dozens more. I run an empire built on fear and violence and blood money. The only difference between me and Casimir is that I draw a few more lines, but the lines keep moving, keep blurring. and I'm not sure there's anything left inside me that's worth redeeming. Then why are you doing this? Why risk everything to avenge people you never knew? Because. His voice broke, just slightly. Because maybe if I can give you justice, it'll make up for all the times I didn't, all the people I failed to protect, all the monsters I became friends with because it was profitable. Ellie pulled his face down and kissed him. He froze, every muscle going rigid. Then something broke inside him, and he kissed her back like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning. His hands came up to frame her face, gentle despite the calluses and scars. When they finally broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. "That was a mistake," he whispered. "Probably. We're both going to die tomorrow. Probably. And you still?" "Yes." Ellie's voice was steady. "I still." He kissed her again, slower this time, like he was trying to memorize the taste of her, the feel of her, something good before the darkness came. They spent the rest of the night in his study, not talking, just sitting together while he finalized plans and she pretended to read. As dawn broke, Damien's phone buzzed. He checked it. Went very still. "What?" Ellie asked. Casimir agreed. 8 o'clock tonight. The cabin. He'll bring 5 men. We bring 5. The trade happens on neutral ground. Damien's jaw tightened. He took the bait. So it's really happening. It's really happening. The day passed in a blur of preparation. Damien's people moved through the estate like shadows, checking weapons, running communications drills, coordinating positions. Ellie was fitted with a bulletproof vest that felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Given a comm unit so she could hear everything. Handed the small revolver Damien had given her days ago. "Last resort," he reminded her, "if everything goes to hell and you're out of options." She tucked it into her jacket, tried not to think about what last resort really meant. At 7 o'clock, they loaded into 3 vehicles. Damien rode with Ellie in the lead car. His head of security drove. 2 more men in the back, all armed, all silent. The drive to the lake took 90 minutes. The sun was setting when they arrived, painting the sky the color of blood and fire. The cabin foundation sat in a clearing surrounded by dense forest. Nothing left but charred wood and stone. A ghost of something that used to be. Damien's people fanned out into the trees, snipers climbed into position, spotters radioed in. By the time Casimir arrived, they'd have every angle covered. "Stay behind that stone wall," Damien told Ellie, pointing to the old foundation. "You'll have cover. Good sight lines. If shooting starts, you get low and stay low. Understood?" "Understood." "And Ellie?" He cupped her face in his hands. "If I don't make it out of this, don't. If I don't make it, I need you to know that meeting you was—" He stopped, swallowed hard. "You made me remember what it felt like to want to be better, to be someone other than what my father's death turned me into. That's worth something. You're not dying tonight." "Probably not, but just in case." He kissed her, hard and desperate and final, then pulled back. "Get to your position. They'll be here soon." Ellie moved behind the stone wall, crouched low. Her heart was hammering so hard she could barely breathe. The comm unit crackled in her ear as Damien's people checked in. Everyone in position. Everyone ready. Then headlights cut through the gathering darkness. 3 black SUVs rolled into the clearing, stopped 20 yards from where Damien stood. Engines cut off. Doors opened. Victor Casimir emerged from the center vehicle like something from a nightmare given flesh. Older than his photographs suggested. Gray hair. Expensive suit. Dead eyes that had seen too much horror and felt nothing. 5 men flanked him, all armed, all watching Damien with the kind of focus that came before violence. Casimir smiled. It was worse than his scowl. "Damien Vescari," he said, voice carrying across the clearing. "Antonio's little boy, all grown up." "Victor," Damien's voice was ice. "You're looking old. And you're looking foolish. Did you really think I'd come here just to trade?" Casimir laughed. "I'm disappointed. Your father was smarter than this." "My father trusted you. That was his mistake. I'm not making the same one." "No. Your mistake is thinking you can win." Casimir gestured to the trees. "I know you have men out there. Snipers, backup. You think I came unprepared?" A dozen more figures emerged from the forest behind Casimir, armed, organized, moving with military precision. Damien didn't flinch. Doesn't matter how many men you brought, you're still going to die tonight. Am I? Casimir's smile widened. Tell me, did you enjoy reading Thomas Mercer's letter, learning the truth about your precious victim? Ellie's blood went cold. I know everything, Casimir continued, about the safe deposit box, about the locket, about the drive. Thomas told me about his insurance policy years ago, told me exactly where he hid it. He looked directly at Ellie's hiding spot, and he told me about his daughter, sweet little Eleanor, who he left behind to carry his sins. Damien's hand moved to his gun. Leave her out of this. But she's the whole point, isn't she? Thomas's final revenge, leaving his daughter the evidence that would destroy me. Except, Casimir pulled out his phone, tapped the screen. I've had the real drive for years. The one Thomas actually used. The one with the operational files that matter. Ellie's world tilted. No, that wasn't possible. The drive you found? Casimir continued. That's Thomas's personal insurance, his guilt, his confessions, his attempt to cleanse his conscience. It has evidence against me, yes, but it has just as much against him, and none of the current operational details, none of the offshore accounts that matter, nothing that would actually hurt me. Damien's expression went absolutely flat. You're lying. Am I? Check for yourself. Look at the file dates. Nothing more recent than 15 years ago. Thomas made that drive before he died, before your father started building his case. It's historical record, not actionable intelligence. Ellie's hands shook as she pulled out the hard drive, checked the files on her phone, the dates, the timestamps. Casimir was right. Everything on the drive was old, ancient, from before her father died. It would prove her father and Casimir had worked together, yes. Would document crimes they'd committed decades ago. But the current operation, the active accounts, the people Casimir owned now? None of it was there. Your father played you both, Casimir said with genuine amusement. Left his daughter a confession disguised as leverage. Made sure she'd hate him for what he'd done. Made sure she'd know the truth, but gave her nothing that could actually destroy me. Then why did you spend weeks hunting for it? Damien's voice was dangerous. Why kill Leon Petrov? Why come after Ellie? Because I didn't know what Thomas had left behind. Couldn't risk it. And because, Casimir shrugged. Why not? Loose ends bother me. And Eleanor here is definitely a loose end. He pulled a gun. Everything happened at once. Damien drew and fired. Casimir's men scattered. The forest erupted with gunfire as snipers opened up. Ellie ducked behind the stone wall as bullets tore through the air above her head. Someone screamed. Multiple someones. Bodies dropped. The night turned into chaos and smoke and the smell of cordite. Ellie risked a look over the wall, saw Damien taking cover behind one of the SUVs, trading shots with Casimir's men, saw 3 bodies already on the ground, saw Casimir himself retreating toward the tree line, firing as he went. Ellie, Damien's voice crackled through the comm. Get out of here! Run! She should have listened, should have followed the plan. Instead, she climbed over the wall and ran toward Casimir, the man who'd helped her father kill her mother, who'd terrorized the city for decades, who'd destroyed countless lives and felt nothing. She had the revolver in her hand. 2 shots. That's all she needed. Casimir saw her coming, turned, smiled. There she is, he said. Thomas's little girl. He raised his gun. Ellie fired first. The revolver kicked hard, the shot went wide. Casimir didn't flinch, just adjusted his aim. Then Damien slammed into her from the side, driving them both behind a fallen log as Casimir's shot tore through the space where she'd been standing. What the hell are you doing? Damien roared. Finishing it! You're getting yourself killed! He fired over the log. Someone screamed, Stay down! But Casimir was moving, retreating deeper into the forest, getting away. Ellie scrambled to her feet. Damien grabbed her arm. Let him go! Ow! No! Ellie tore free. He doesn't get to walk away. Not after everything. She ran into the trees, heard Damien swearing behind her, heard him following. The gunfire faded as she pushed deeper into the forest, chasing the shadow that was Victor Casimir. She found him at the lake's edge, standing on the old dock where her father used to take her fishing, where they'd spent summer afternoons that now felt like lies. The dock groaned under his weight, half-rotted boards barely holding.
Casimir turned to face her. He wasn't smiling anymore. "You have your father's eyes," he said. "Did anyone ever tell you that?" Ellie raised the revolver. One shot left. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely aim. "He loved you, you know," Casimir continued. "In his own broken way. That's why he couldn't let your mother take you. Why he'd rather see her dead than lose you. Shut up."
The fire was his idea, not mine. I just facilitated, provided the accelerant, made sure the investigators would rule it accidental, but Thomas lit the match himself. I said, "Shut up." He stood outside and watched it burn, listened to her screaming, and when it was over, he cried like a child. Said he'd done it for you, to protect you, to make sure you'd never know what he really was. Ellie's finger tightened on the trigger. "But here you are anyway," Casimir said softly, "knowing everything, hating him for it, exactly what he was trying to prevent. Isn't that funny? He destroyed your mother to protect you from the truth, and 15 years later the truth found you anyway. You helped him." "I did, and I'd do it again because that's what partners do. We protect each other, cover each other's sins. Your father and I, we built something beautiful together, an empire that lasted decades, and it all came crashing down because he developed a conscience." Behind Ellie, footsteps. Damien emerged from the trees, gun raised. "Step away from him," Damien said. "Or what?" Casimir laughed. "You'll shoot me? Go ahead. I'm an old man. I've lived longer than I deserved anyway. But know this, killing me won't change anything. The empire still stands. My people are still out there. You take me down, someone else rises. That's how this works." "Not this time." Damien moved closer. "I'm not just killing you. I'm burning it all. Every connection, every asset, every person who helped you build this. By the time I'm done, your name will be forgotten, your empire dust. And history will remember you as nothing but a monster who died alone in the dark." Casimir's smile finally faded. "You really think you can—" Ellie fired her last shot. The bullet caught Casimir in the chest. He staggered backward, hit the dock railing, tipped over, and fell into the black water below. Ellie stood frozen, gun still raised, watching the ripples spread across the lake's surface. Damien was beside her instantly. "Is he—" "I don't know." Her voice sounded distant, hollow. "I don't know if I killed him or just wounded him or—" The water exploded. Casimir's hand shot up, grabbed the dock edge. He pulled himself halfway out of the lake, blood spreading across his shirt, eyes blazing with pure hatred. "You little—" he gasped. Damien fired 3 shots. Casimir's grip loosened. He slid back into the water. This time he didn't resurface. They stood on the dock watching the lake go still, watching blood spread like ink across the surface, waiting to see if the monster would rise again. He didn't. The comm unit crackled. "Area secure. Casimir's men are down or retreating. We have 4 casualties on our side. Multiple wounded. Need medevac." Damien responded in a voice that didn't sound like his own. "Send it, and get a dive team out here. I want Casimir's body recovered. I want proof." He lowered the radio, looked at Ellie. "It's over," he said. But Ellie couldn't hear him over the roaring in her ears, couldn't process that Victor Casimir was dead, that she'd shot him, that 15 years of grief and rage and lies had ended with a bullet and a black lake. Her legs gave out. Damien caught her before she hit the ground, lowered her gently, held her while she shook. "It's over," he said again. "You're safe now. It's over." But as the night closed in and sirens wailed in the distance and the lake held its dead, Ellie realized nothing would ever truly be over, because the truth was still the truth. Her father was still a monster, her mother was still murdered, and she was still the daughter of someone who'd burned the world rather than face his own sins. The only difference was now everyone would know, and there was no going back from that. The dive team pulled Victor Casimir's body from the lake at 3 a.m. Ellie watched from the shore, wrapped in a blanket someone had given her, shivering despite the warm night. Damien stood beside her, silent and still as a monument. When they laid Casimir's corpse on the dock, water streaming from his expensive suit, his dead eyes staring at nothing, Damien didn't move, didn't react, just watched with an expression carved from stone. "It's done," one of Damien's men said quietly. "He's gone." Damien nodded once, then turned and walked back toward the vehicles without another word. Ellie followed because she didn't know what else to do. Her hands still smelled like gunpowder, her ears still rang from the gunfire, and somewhere deep in her chest, something that had been wound tight for 15 years was finally beginning to unravel. The ride back to the estate passed in silence. Damien stared out the window at the darkness rolling by. Ellie counted her own heartbeats and tried not to think about the weight of the revolver in her pocket. 2 shots. She'd used both. One had missed. One had found its mark. She'd killed a man. The thought should have horrified her, should have sent her spiraling into guilt and shame and all the things good people were supposed to feel after taking a life. Instead, she felt nothing, just hollow, empty. Like someone had scooped out everything inside her and left behind a shell that looked like Ellie Mercer, but wasn't anymore. Back at the estate, Damien's people scattered to their duties, cleaning weapons, treating wounded, making calls to lawyers and fixers, and people who specialized in making problems disappear. Ellie drifted through the corridors like a ghost until she found herself back in the room she'd been given on that first terrifying night. It felt like a lifetime ago. She stood under the shower until the water ran cold, scrubbing at skin that wouldn't come clean no matter how hard she tried. When she finally emerged, wrapped in a towel with her hair dripping, Damien was sitting on her bed. "You should be resting," he said. "So should you." "Can't. Too much to do." But he didn't move, just sat there with his shoulders slumped and his eyes hollow. "The FBI will be here by noon. I called them, told them I have evidence of a massive criminal conspiracy. They're sending a task force." The drive. "Yes. It won't destroy Casimir's current operation like we'd hoped, but it'll expose what he and your father built together, give the feds enough to start dismantling what's left." He looked up at her. "Your father's name will be dragged through the mud. Everyone will know what he was, what he did. Are you ready for that?" Ellie sat beside him on the bed. "I don't know if I'll ever be ready, but it needs to happen anyway." "You could walk away, change your name, disappear. I'd make sure the drive went public without your involvement. You'd never have to be connected to any of this." "And spend the rest of my life running, pretending to be someone I'm not?" She shook her head. "No. My mother deserves better than that. She deserves people knowing she was murdered, that she tried to protect me, that she died because my father was too much of a coward to face what he'd become." Damien reached for her hand, held it gently. "You're stronger than you know. I shot a man tonight. You killed a monster. Is there a difference?" "Yes." His voice was firm. "Casimir spent 40 years destroying lives. Your bullet ended that, saved whoever he would have hurt next. That's not murder. That's justice." Ellie wanted to believe him, wanted to feel righteous instead of hollow. But when she closed her eyes, all she saw was Casimir's face as he fell backward into the lake. The surprise, the rage, the very human fear in the seconds before he hit the water. "I'm not sure I'm a good person anymore," she whispered. "Good people don't survive what you've survived. They break. They run. They let the world swallow them whole." Damien lifted her hand and pressed it against his chest, against the steady beat of his heart. "You're still here, still fighting, still breathing. That makes you something better than good. It makes you strong." "I don't feel strong." "You will, eventually." He released her hand, stood. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be brutal. Interrogations, depositions, media if they get wind of it. You'll need to be ready." He moved toward the door. Ellie's voice stopped him. "Stay." He turned. "Ellie, please, I don't want to be alone tonight." For a long moment, he just looked at her. Then he closed the door, crossed back to the bed, lay down beside her on top of the covers, fully clothed, careful not to touch. Ellie shifted closer, rested her head on his chest, felt his arm come around her shoulders. "I'm not good at this," he said quietly. "The comfort thing, the being there for people thing. I've spent so long being what my father's empire needed me to be that I'm not sure there's much left underneath. There's enough. Is there? Because right now I'm lying here calculating how to spin tonight's events to federal prosecutors, how to position the evidence, what to admit and what to bury. I can't turn it off. Can't stop being what I am." "What are you?" "A monster who occasionally does the right thing for the wrong reasons." He tightened his hold on her. But for what it's worth, if I could be anything else for you, I would. Ellie closed her eyes and listened to his heartbeat. You're enough, just like this. She felt him press a kiss to the top of her head. Then silence settled over them like a blanket, and eventually, exhaustion dragged her under. When she woke, sunlight was streaming through the windows and Damien was gone. She found him in his study, tie loosened, shirt wrinkled, surrounded by lawyers in expensive suits. They looked up when she entered, and she saw the calculation in their eyes, the assessment, wondering if she was a witness or a liability. Gentlemen, Damien said without looking at them, give us a moment. They filed out. The door closed. FBI's delayed, Damien said. Won't be here until this evening. Something about coordinating with local jurisdiction. He rubbed his face. Gives us time to get our story straight. Our story? You answered a wrong number. Got dragged into a war between me and Casimir. I protected you. Casimir came after both of us. We defended ourselves. He died in the confrontation. Damien's voice was flat, professional, simple, clean, mostly true. What about my father? The drive speaks for itself. We don't have to embellish, just hand it over and let the evidence do the talking. He finally looked at her. But once we do that, there's no taking it back. Your father's crimes become public record. His name becomes synonymous with murder and corruption. And you become the daughter who exposed him. I know. People will judge you, hate you for destroying your father's memory, or pity you for having a monster for a parent. Either way, your life changes forever. Ellie moved to the window, looked out at the grounds where men had died just days ago defending this fortress from Casimir's assault. My life already changed the moment I answered that call. Everything after has just been dealing with the consequences. You can still choose how those consequences play out. No. She turned to face him. I can't. My mother is dead. My father killed her. Casimir helped. And for 15 years, I believed a lie. The only choice I have now is whether to let that lie keep living or kill it, like my father should have killed his empire before it destroyed everything he supposedly loved. Damien stood, crossed to her. You're sure? I'm sure I can't live with myself if I don't tell the truth, even if the truth is ugly. Okay. He pulled out his phone. Then let's make sure the truth actually matters. I'm putting you in touch with a journalist, someone I trust, someone who'll tell your mother's story the right way. Not just the crime, the victim. The woman who tried to save her daughter and paid for it with her life. Ellie's throat tightened. Why would you do that? Because if we're burning your father's legacy, we might as well make sure people remember what he destroyed to build it. Damien's expression softened just slightly. Your mother deserves to be more than a footnote in a crime report. This way, she gets to be the hero of the story, the one who saw the monster for what he was and tried to stop him. For the first time since leaving the lake, Ellie felt something crack in her chest. Not breaking, thawing, like ice that had been frozen for so long she'd forgotten what warmth felt like. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me yet. This journalist is relentless. She'll want every detail, every memory, every painful truth you've been carrying. It won't be easy. Nothing about this has been easy. No, Damien almost smiled. But you're still standing. That counts for something. The journalist arrived that afternoon. A woman in her 40s named Sarah Chen with sharp eyes and a recorder that captured every word. She sat across from Ellie in the library and asked questions that cut like surgical instruments. What was your father like? When did your mother realize what he was? What were her last words to you? Ellie answered all of them, let the pain bleed out into Sarah's recorder, gave her mother's story the voice it deserved. By the time they finished, the sun was setting and Ellie felt scraped raw, hollowed out, but also lighter somehow, like confession had burned away weight she didn't know she'd been carrying. Thank you, Sarah said as she packed up her equipment. This won't be easy for you when it goes public. People are going to have opinions, strong ones, but your mother's story deserves to be told, and I'm going to make sure it is. After she left, Ellie found Damien on the terrace overlooking the grounds. He'd changed into jeans and a dark sweater. No suit, no armor, just a tired man watching the sunset. FBI's here, he said without turning around. Waiting in the main hall with enough agents to arrest a small army. You ready? As ready as I'll ever be. He finally looked at her. Whatever happens in there, whatever they ask, remember you're the victim in this. You didn't choose any of it. It chose you. And you? I made my choices a long time ago. Now I pay for them. He started toward the door. Stopped. For what it's worth, meeting you was the first thing in 6 years that made me think maybe I could be something other than my father's revenge. What are you saying? I'm saying when this is over and the feds finish with us, I'm walking away. From the empire. From the violence. From all of it. His voice was quiet. I'm going to try being a normal person. See if there's anything left under the monster that's worth saving. Ellie's heart kicked. Where will you go? Don't know yet. Somewhere Casimir never touched. Somewhere I can pretend to be someone who never put a bullet in another man. He looked at her with those storm cloud eyes that had terrified her once upon a wrong number. You could come with me, if you wanted. Start over together. Build something that isn't soaked in blood. Damien, or don't. Walk away. Build your own life. Either way, you're free now. Casimir's dead. His empire's crumbling. And whatever happens with the FBI, I'll make sure you come out of it clean. He touched her face gently. You don't owe me anything. Remember that. Before she could respond, one of his men appeared in the doorway. Sir, they're getting impatient. Damien nodded, turned to Ellie. Let's go face the music. The interrogation lasted 6 hours. Federal agents in dark suits asked the same question 17 different ways. Where did you get the drive? How did you know where to find it? What was your relationship with Victor Casimir? With Damien Vescari? Did you fire the weapon that killed Casimir? Ellie answered truthfully. About the phone call, the roses, the apartment raid, the locket, the safe deposit box, her father's letter, the confrontation at the lake. She told them she'd shot Casimir in self-defense, that he'd been about to kill her and Damien both, that she'd pulled the trigger because she wanted to live. It was true. Mostly. She left out the part about wanting him dead, about chasing him into the forest, about pulling the trigger not because she had to, but because she needed to watch the light leave his eyes. Some truths were better kept private. Damien was interrogated separately. Ellie didn't know what he told them, but whatever it was must have been convincing because after 6 hours, the lead agent shook both their hands and said they were cooperating witnesses, not suspects. We'll need you available for follow-up questions, the agent said. But for now, you're free to go, both of you. Just like that, it was over. Damien walked Ellie to one of the guest rooms that had been set up as a temporary quarters. You should sleep. Tomorrow's going to bring reporters, questions, your father's crimes going public. What about you? I have calls to make, people to pay off, bridges to burn. He looked exhausted. The empire doesn't dismantle itself. You meant what you said? About walking away? Every word. He leaned against the doorframe. I've spent 6 years becoming exactly what Casimir was. Building power through fear, controlling people through violence. It worked. I'm rich, feared, untouchable. And I'm so goddamn tired of it, I can barely stand looking at myself in the mirror. So what happens to all of this? Ellie gestured at the estate around them. I have people who can run the legitimate businesses. The rest, he shrugged. Let it collapse. Let someone else fight over the scraps. I don't care anymore. And us? The question hung in the air between them. Damien studied her face like he was trying to memorize it. I want there to be an us. I want to wake up somewhere quiet with you beside me and pretend we're just two normal people who met under normal circumstances. But I don't know if that's possible. I don't know if you can look at me and not see the man who killed people in his own entrance hall, who runs an empire built on blood. Who's no better than Casimir except in the ways that barely matter? Ellie stepped closer, close enough to feel the heat of him. I see a man who protected me when he didn't have to, who risked everything to give me the truth, even when it destroyed both our worlds, who looks at me like I'm worth saving instead of a problem to solve. You see what you want to see. Maybe. Or maybe I see what's actually there under all the armor and the violence and the guilt. She took his hand. You're not Casimir. You're not your father. You're just Damien, and that's enough. He kissed her then, slow and desperate and tinged with something that felt like goodbye. When he finally pulled back, his eyes were wet. I don't deserve you, he whispered. Probably not, but I'm choosing you anyway. 6 months later, Ellie stood in a small apartment overlooking the Pacific Ocean, watching waves crash against rocks that had seen 10,000 storms and would see 10,000 more. The apartment was modest, 2 bedrooms, kitchen barely big enough for 2 people, nothing like the Gothic estate or even her old place on Bleecker Street. But it was hers, theirs. Behind her, Damien emerged from the bedroom wearing jeans and a faded t-shirt she'd bought him because his wardrobe had consisted entirely of suits. He looked different now, softer. The hard edges hadn't disappeared completely, but they'd dulled, like a blade left to rust in the rain. "Coffee's ready," he said. "Thanks." She turned to face him. "Sarah's article goes live today." "I know. You ready?" "No, but it's happening anyway." The article was everything Sarah had promised. A full investigation into Thomas Mercer and Victor Casimir's partnership, the crimes they'd committed, the empire they'd built, and at the center of it all, the story of Margaret Mercer, a woman who'd discovered her husband was a monster and paid for that knowledge with her life. The article painted Thomas Mercer as exactly what he was. Not a victim, not a hero, a man who'd chosen money over morality and murder over facing his own guilt. And it painted Ellie as the daughter who'd exposed him, who'd chosen truth over protecting her father's memory. The backlash had been immediate. Half the internet called her a hero. The other half called her a traitor. People she'd never met had opinions about her father, her mother, her choices. She'd deleted all her social media accounts within a week. "The foundation's official next month," Damien said, handing her coffee. "The lawyers finalized everything yesterday. The Margaret Mercer Foundation. Built with money from Damien's legitimate businesses, designed to help children who'd lost parents to violence, to give them resources and support, and someone who understood what it was like to have your world ripped apart. It wouldn't bring her mother back, wouldn't undo the 15 years of lies, but it would make sure other kids didn't fall through the cracks the way she almost had. Your mother would be proud," Damien said quietly. "I hope so." Ellie sipped her coffee, watched the ocean. "Do you ever regret it, walking away from everything?" "Every day." He moved beside her. "But I don't regret you. Don't regret choosing something real over something powerful. And I don't regret waking up in the morning without blood on my hands." "You miss it, though." "The power." "Sometimes. Old habits. Old instincts." He touched her face gently. "But then I look at you and remember that being feared isn't the same as being loved. And for the first time in my life, I'd rather be loved." Ellie leaned into his touch. "I love you." "I know, still don't understand why, but I'm not complaining. Because you're a good man pretending to be something worse, and I saw through the pretense. Or I'm a bad man pretending to be something better, and you're too optimistic to see it." "Maybe," she smiled. "But I'm keeping you anyway." They stood together watching the ocean while the sun climbed higher and the world kept turning, and somewhere far away, Victor Casimir's empire continued collapsing into dust. Arrests had been made, accounts frozen, corrupt officials exposed. The drive had done its work even if it hadn't contained everything they'd hoped. Ellie's father would be remembered as a monster. There was no changing that, no redemption arc for a man who'd murdered his wife and built an empire on blood money. But her mother would be remembered too, as a victim, as a hero, as someone who'd tried to do the right thing and paid the ultimate price. That had to be enough. It was all Ellie could give her now. "I'm going back to nursing," she said suddenly. "Not in the city, somewhere smaller, somewhere quiet. But I need to do something that matters, something that helps people instead of destroying them." "I think that's good." Damien's arm came around her shoulders. "I've been thinking about teaching business ethics at a community college. Seems fitting. I spent 20 years doing everything wrong. Might as well spend the next 20 trying to teach people how to do it right." Ellie laughed. It came out easier now than it had 6 months ago. Business ethics, taught by a former mob boss. That's not ironic at all. Life's funny that way. They fell silent, watching the waves, breathing salt air, existing in a moment that was theirs and theirs alone. "Do you think we'll ever feel normal?" Ellie asked. "Really normal? Not pretending?" "Probably not. We've seen too much, done too much, lost too much." Damien pulled her closer. "But maybe that's okay. Maybe normal is overrated. Maybe all that matters is finding someone who understands your particular brand of broken and loves you anyway. Is that what we are? Broken? We're survivors. which is just another word for people who got broken but refused to stay that way. Ellie rested her head on his shoulder. I answered a wrong number, and it destroyed my entire life. It did, but it also gave me you, and the truth, and a reason to keep fighting when everything inside me wanted to give up. So was it worth it? All the pain and blood and trauma? She thought about her mother, about the years stolen by lies, about standing on a dock with a gun in her hand and ending a monster's life. Ask me in another 20 years, she said finally, when the nightmares stop, when I can think about my father without wanting to scream, when the foundation's helped enough kids that I can believe something good came from all the bad. Fair enough. They stayed there until the sun reached its zenith and hunger drove them inside. They made lunch together in the tiny kitchen, bumping into each other and laughing when Damien burned the eggs because he was still learning how to cook. They ate on the small balcony overlooking the ocean and talked about mundane things, groceries, bills, whether to get a cat, normal things, human things, the kind of things that had no place in the world they'd left behind. And for the first time since answering that wrong number on a rain-soaked Thursday night, Ellie felt something close to peace. Not happiness. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But peace. The knowledge that she'd done the right thing even when it cost her everything. That her mother's death wouldn't be forgotten. That monsters like Casimir and her father would be remembered for what they truly were. And that despite everything, despite all the blood and lies and trauma, she'd found someone who understood. Someone who looked at her scars and saw beauty instead of damage. Someone who'd answered when she'd called for help, even though he'd been drowning himself. Two broken people building something whole from shattered pieces. It wasn't the life she'd imagined at 16, wasn't the life her mother had wanted for her, but it was hers, earned through fire and blood and choices that would haunt her for the rest of her days. And that would have to be enough. Because in the end, survival wasn't about happiness. It was about waking up each morning and choosing to keep breathing even when the weight of yesterday made that choice feel impossible. Ellie had survived. Her mother's memory had survived. And somewhere in the foundation they would build and the lives they would save and the quiet moments watching the ocean, maybe her mother's death would mean something. Maybe the wrong number that destroyed everything would become the right number after all. Not because it brought happiness, but because it brought truth. And truth, no matter how ugly, was always worth the cost. Always.